What's going on, people? We're gonna get started pretty soon, so no random ramblings today. At least not until afterwards. I don't have an opening statement, by the way, so I'm probably just gonna have to wing it. But you know what? That's not too bad. I'm gonna guess Mexico. I don't know really if that's right. Yeah. So it's probably like South Korea. I feel like it's definitely not South Korea because I've had South Korea before and it's quite a bit different. But yeah, it's in between them. Yeah. There's no European countries are that far south, right? So what are we? Turkey? Turkey would have more oil, wouldn't it? Fucking Romania. Oh come on. Oh fucking directly east of or west of Romania. Fuck, I don't know. Austria? I feel like Austria would have less exports than this. Fuck. Hungary? There we go. Okay, good enough. Fuck it. Whatever. Let me inform people now that we're about to start.
Give me a second. We're not live yet or nothing, but
Hello.
hello. Sorry, I'm just doing last minute setup stuff.
Oh, sorry about that. I just saw people looking around. I was like, "Oh, is my sound gone?"
Your sound is fine to me. Everyone else able to hear this, gentlemen?
Yeah. Yep.
I'll
Oh
unmute.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, there he goes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Sorry about that. I didn't.
Yeah, Dictator 13 doesn't like me.
Yeah. Well, fair enough.
Happens sometimes.
Vigilant. If you have a camera, turn it on, please.
It's
Your
okay,
lovely
Loki.
faces.
He doesn't like
Kind
me
of can't
either.
right now
Why can't you?
because I'm in the middle of doing something. Afterwards, I can.
Are you pooping? You're
No.
pooping. I bet you're pooping.
Family over.
I can't right now.
Say hi to your mom for me, by the way.
Mainly because I haven't been able to set it up since I switched operating systems, which is my bad.
You're fine.
It's
How you
just the
doing, though?
drivers aren't working properly.
Say something non-fun so we can hear you.
Yeah, what's up?
Okay, just want to make sure everyone's audio is... I'm equalizing audios, so, you know. bear with me.
Perfect.
So, for those of you who've never been on my show before or it's been a while, let me kind of tell you how this is going to go. I will say hi to the audience. I will introduce the topic, and we're going to be talking about the big, beautiful bill, the big bastard of a bill, whatever you want to call it, the budget bill that recently passed. And then we're going to get into it, and I'm going to give each of you, and I stress this, brief introductions. Tell people who you are, what you do, and why we should listen to you, and then give opening thoughts on the subject at hand. Once that's done, we'll get into the open discussion. And if you have trouble getting in or a word in to endwise, if you feel like you're being talked over, blah, 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 just get my attention. Raise your hand, nudge me, elbow me, send me a DM, whatever, right? And I will try to give you the space that you need. Any questions? Anything like that?
Nope.
No, I think I'm good.
Beautiful. Got about a minute left, so if you need to use a restroom or get a drink or a snack, now's the time.
Why did you go with the Sisters for Warhammer, though? Let me ask you this.
I enjoy the concept of a religious
True, it is
army,
FaceTime. Welcome
right?
back,
A
everyone, by the way.
direct, like,
Welcome back,
arm
Seth
of
Rama
the
and Maida and
ecclesiastic
Hunter Young. Welcome,
branch.
welcome.
And nuns with guns are a cool concept. So,
All
yeah.
right. How do you feel about
Am I loud
Slanesh?
enough? Are they too quiet or something?
Slanesh?
Yeah.
Oh, chaos is fine. I have a fantasy chaos army, but
I'm a
It's
it's
nerd
like
a
wolf, by the
lot.
way.
it's
Should be
undivided, so I got
Fun.
things
I
from all
don't
the
know.
things. So.
I love nerd
I don't even
wolf.
know what these people defend about the
Nerdle's
bill
cool.
exactly. But
Okay. And with that, let's start this shit show. Okay, everyone ready? Everyone set?
No.
Okay.
Oh, no, I'm just fucking around.
So you're ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I've clicked the button to go live, and I think I'm. Oh, hold on. No one can hear us. One moment.
Yep.
Okay, can people hear me now? And someone talk, so we'll see if they can hear you.
Hello.
Yes.
Okay, it's picking up the audio now. Sorry about that, gang. Okay, let's try this again. Welcome to yet another episode of WhickTV. It's a cross-ideological space where we come together to talk about issues both political and cultural, from the silly to the serious. Today, we are going to be talking about the recent budget bill that passed and I believe was signed into law recently by Donald J. Trump. The big, beautiful bill, or the big bastard of a bill, whatever you want to call it, right? It is a piece of legislation that many on the left and right had issues with, though the right eventually voted for it for the most part, with a few exceptions. Today we're going to be talking about whether or not this bill, this budget bill, is indeed beautiful. Is it something that's going to be positive for America or negative for America, and why? And I've got some interesting guests on today to talk about it. Let's get into it. Let's give the mic first to Vigilante. Tell people who you are, what you think, and what is your opinion on the subject. Go ahead.
I'm the Vigilante TV. I'm a progressive or leftist, typically on the socialist leaning side of things. In my opinion, there are some good things in this bill, like the no tax on overtime thing, which was done poorly, unfortunately. There are a lot more bad things in this bill, cutting environmental protections or incentives for doing environmentally friendly things, massive cuts towards Medicaid and SNAP, which are going to overwhelmingly hurt the poor. It does help the middle class a little, like certain cuts help the middle class a little bit, but it's mostly going to overall hurt America. Millions of people are going to end up losing Medicaid. It's going to end up resulting in a lot of hospitals closing that rely on Medicaid funding. This is not gonna help very many people.
Okay, well, thank you for being here. We'll get into it as we go. Next up, first time guest on my show for one of these panel things, at least. Loki, go ahead.
How's it going? I'm Loki. My Twitch chat is going to be Dying Mai. When it comes to the Big Beautiful Bill, I generally agree with it. The only aspect of the Big Beautiful Bill that I would typically not agree with is the tax deficit. And yeah, I'm a libertarian.
Okay, well, thank you for being here. Short and sweet. We'll get into it. And again, when you can turn on your camera, please do so. Next up, Non-Fun, no stranger to my channel. Glad to have him back. Hi.
Yeah, what's up? I'm Non-Fun. I'm your typical liberal streamer. Stream on YouTube at Non-Fun, Twitch and Kick at Non-Fun420. I talk mostly about economics, usually a lot of boring stuff. I think basically, no matter like what type of person you are, you should probably be opposed to this bill. I think obviously if you're more towards the progressive side, you don't like it because it's a lot of tax cuts that are oftentimes regressive in nature. I think even if you are a libertarian and supply sider, you should not like the fact that we're increasing the deficit so much during a time when we should be reducing the deficit, especially because a lot of these random like tax deduction, tax cuts things are increase administrative complexity that libertarians and progressives alike should not want.
Okay, and with that, oh, we got one more. Bored Cows, another first-time guest on my stream. What are your thoughts
Well,
here? Who are you? Why should we listen to you? What are your thoughts? Go ahead.
I'm bored cows. I'm a center right type of person, and first, no legislation is going to be perfect. We're in a democracy. Everything's built on compromise. The big major things I would disagree with it would obviously be the fiscal spending. Nobody really likes that. Things I do like about it is border security increase and the pro-natalist stance it takes with the Trump budgets, where you get $1,000 per person per child when they're born. Trump accounts is what they're called. My bad.
Okay, no problem. Thank you for being here, and we'll get into it as we go. And with that, the floor is open. Again, please, if I tell you to shut up, please shut up, because if I do tell you that, it's because either A, I have a question, or B, you're all yelling and screaming at each other. No one can hear what's being said. But yeah, go ahead. What are we thought? What are our thoughts? Open discussion. Go ahead.
Should we go to the border crisis first?
If that's what you want to take it, go for it, sir.
All right. I do not believe that we have a causal obligation to these people that are actively coming over. And when it comes to the action, like New York, California, we can look at the taxes. One of the biggest taxes that they won't be able to like pay into is income tax, which when we look at IRS, this is something that they're not paying for if they're working under the like stable jobs, or it's going to be property tax because we can look at the action of how much taxes we've lost. If you guys want a source for this, I can give it to you.
Right. So I mean, I would say like, you know, number one, I would also just like generally have moral concerns with if we are spending billions of dollars to, you know, build detention facilities. Is there any possible way that we are going to be able to deport this many number of immigrants humanely or whatever? But also, like, secondly, you know, I do think that most of the evidence shows that a lot of times immigrants are either a fiscal positive or they have children who end up being fiscal positives. And I think if you deport a bunch of working age illegal immigrants or whatever, you're going to end up removing their children from America as well when they would grow up to be net tax contributors.
Wait, their children might be a tax contributor, but that doesn't make them a tax contributor.
Sure, but there's a long-term benefit
no,
there.
Wait, a long-term.
Hold on.
At the situation taking place, they're a net negative. If you want a source, you can go look at Fair Federal for Americans Immigration Reform, 2003, when it comes to this action. When it comes to like the total taxes, total federal taxes paid was 16 billion. When it comes to federal, state tax, or local taxes paid was 15. 15 billion, and then when it comes to total taxes contribute was 31 billion. But when it comes to us paying for like their housing, anything like this, while they're actively seeking asylum, everything like this, we spent a total of 182 billion just for them.
Yeah, so look, I'm
I
familiar with the
have-
FAIR study broadly. I think they make like a number of errors. There's a whole back and forth that they've gone through with the Cato Institute and some other authors in immigration. But one big thing that FAIR does is they count the they count the like welfare and benefits that immigrants' children get. But then, like I mentioned earlier, don't account for the fact that their children will then grow up to be net tax contributors and actually pay back most of the money they use. And that's on top of I think there's other errors that they make. I can go through my notes
Yeah,
and
the
try to
child,
find
by the
them,
way,
but.
the child is actively paying back for what one person does, not their family. When it comes to the action still at hand,
Well, no.
what causal obligation do we have to them?
Well, I'm not saying we necessarily have an obligation to them. I'm just saying typically, it's a net benefit that they are here, right? So like, I understand the child. When I say the child is paying back, what I mean is like if the immigrant family consumes $10,000 of welfare benefits, well, the child might grow up and pay back $20,000, pay $20,000 in taxes over his lifetime. So, what? Sorry.
Might, or is this every single time? Would you say that this is the majority?
On average, right? So there's a good study that came out like relatively recently that studied like upward mobility in immigration in the U.S. for like the last 100 years, and they found like, hey, look, it seems like immigrants have just like always been more upwardly mobile than native-born citizens. So even today, when immigrants come over, not only do their parents wage increase relative to their what they're making at home, but their children grow up to be in a higher quintile than their parents do usually, and they end up being net tax contributors.
Wait, but with the initial action of the parents coming over here, do we have a causal obligation to their parents?
Like I said, I don't believe I don't believe we necessarily have an obligation to them. Now,
Okay,
I do
so
believe
then why
I do
should
believe
we
people.
come here?
As I mentioned, what I was about to say is one, I think they are a net benefit to be here. I think them working, contributing to our economy. What? Sorry.
In what sense? Because when it comes to the illegal immigration, with the parents actively being a burden on the tax dollars, which we can look at like New York, California. New York is going to be the best bet. The smaller communities in like Watertown around the military installations and the smaller communities are actively paying more taxes so they could be able to live here. And when it comes to the illegal immigrants, since they are not paying income tax, which the IRS is going to get the most.
That's not true.
Wait, you're saying that income tax isn't like the biggest part of IRS?
No, I'm saying
Go
that
ahead,
illegal
Victor.
immigrants in some cases do pay taxes. It's actually reported that in total, illegal immigrants last year paid 97 billion in income taxes.
Wait, would you say that's
I do have a source for that.
Yeah, can I get the source for that?
Yes.
Just put it in
Because
the group chat.
yeah, because for this one, I'll copy and paste this one. When it comes to income tax, is going to be the biggest spot that we're going to be losing money to illegal immigrants.
Well,
Okay,
I mean,
so
obviously, hold on, real quick. Can I?
Okay, just real quick, non-fun, and then I'm going to bring us back
Yes,
on track a little bit.
Yeah, so look, obviously illegal immigrants don't pay income tax, but there are other taxes they pay. And secondly, a lot of times when people say illegal immigrants, excise taxes and depending on the state taxes. But again, when a lot of people say illegal immigrants, when a lot of people, can I just finish my thing? When a lot of people say illegal immigrants, what they really mean is just asylum seekers. And a lot of asylum seekers have work authorization, and they do pay the tax. They do pay into the tax system more or less like any regular U.S. worker. Again, I would encourage everyone just look up like CBO, undocumented immigrants. The CBO did an estimate a while ago, estimating that the surge of immigration under Biden would actually reduce the deficit over 10 years by $900 billion. So presumably, if we're deporting all these immigrants or whatever, not only are we going to spend money on deportations, but we're also going to lose out on that $900 billion that they would otherwise contribute to the deficit or contribute to the taxes.
Yeah, I don't want to recenter on this. Like, I don't want this to just be an immigration debate, right? Because there's a lot to talk about immigration. What does the big, beautiful bill, the big bastard bill, whatever you want to call it, what does the budget bill have to do with this? In what ways does it either benefit or help the situation, or in your view, if that's your view, hurt the situation? That's what I want to, that's what I care about today. That's what I want to hear, right? What do we think?
Well, I think it allows us to gain kind of natural sovereignty over our borders again, because there's a lot of things I do think we should be prioritizing with our borders. So I'm tend to be a bit more pro-immigration than most people. One of the things I dislike about having more of an open border is that, well, you get the people that benefit the most from it are going to be people from like Mexico and Latin America. It kind of is a slap in the face. Everybody kind of waiting across the world that would also want to come over, participate in the American dream, and then also when they come in legally in some cases, versus illegal. Illegal, you have so many different problems that pop up. You're like, well, do they pay income taxes? Do they not? If they're here legally, you get to like track them. Do you get the car? That's easier for them to start working. Whole bunch of other things.
With the money that we're actively taxing when it comes to New York and other states, me as a libertarian, I believe in like a very minimum taxation. But with us actively paying for these people to be able to be in this country illegally, seeking asylum, that we didn't cause them to be in a state of dependence, I would just say that I would rather spend like maybe $100, send them back to their home country, and not worry about them. Instead of
I mean, it
trying to
costs
get them-
like I think the most recent estimates are about like $13,000 per deportation, and then again, you know that a lot of immigrants probably contribute more than $13,000 in taxes directly, and then also indirectly, they obviously have indirect effects as well. If we just produce more things, like if businesses can construct stuff easier because there's more immigrant construction workers, there's going to be more taxes paid by businesses, and that there's a study from Minneapolis in 2020 that basically found that exact effect, that immigrants actually end up contributing. Even low-skill immigrants who don't have high school degrees end up contributing net taxes when they are when you account for the indirect effects that they have.
Wait, when it comes to the illegal immigrants, as the action of them working under the table, do they pay income tax and do they pay property tax typically, or do they stay with family members that have property?
No. So if you're talking like again, like strictly undocumented immigrants, a lot of people don't pay into the tax system. But how many? There aren't probably not as many of those people as you think, right? Because a lot of people who came over under Biden and everything were asylum seekers who were granted work authorization after being in the U.S. for about 90 days. I think was the standard under him.
Wait, do you have a causal obligation to asylum seekers?
I don't know how many times I have to say this. I don't think we necessarily have an obligation for them. I think that they benefit us, and it's a net cost to deport them, both in the sense of the deficit and in the sense of, just our economy, generally speaking. And I would hope that, like, if you think that immigrants are, draining our spending so much, you would at least be opposed to how much we're cutting taxes and how much that's going to increase spending or increase deficit spending, especially because that's going to lead interest rate cost increase, right? Like that's going to be a huge expense is interest rate cost increases. That's probably going to be way more than illegal immigrants could ever do to us.
Oh,
Wonderful.
I was gonna wait for the other person, Vitch, whatever his name is.
All right, so while there are good things that we could have done in order to help the immigration situation, like putting more funding towards immigration judges, all this bill really seems to do to affect the border situation is just throw money towards ICE with things like a $10,000 signing bonus to join ICE, which is actually fucking retarded. It doesn't help the immigration situation like at all.
Just a question on that for you. Because again, as I understand it, they got almost 200 billion. It's just short of $200 billion for ICE funding. Is that correct? Am I getting that number?
I thought it was 350 billion.
Yeah, something.
350.
I think it was more than that. Hold on.
Oh, fair enough.
I have
Fair
the
Hey,
enough.
was it like a 200 billion increase and make it a total of 350? The number I got was 350.
Fair enough. My question though, to Vigilante and to Nonfon, if he shares Vigilante's stance here, is would that not increase the effectiveness of ICE at rooting out illegal immigrants that are in this country? Would that not help at least solve that problem to some extent? What is your main objection to funding ICE more in this case?
So the thing is, when it comes to illegal immigration, the majority of people who are classified as illegal here are people who overstayed their visas, which means they're just going to come. Those are the people that just came in and disappeared. There's not much additional funding towards ICE that could really help finding those people because a lot of the times they come in and pretty much just disappeared. It's
Oh shit!
kinda
Thanks for
hard
the follow,
to-
WhickTV. Wow, incredible.
find those people in general. Throwing more money to get more officers isn't going to help that.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would have two concerns, like I've said earlier. One is just kind of a like general moral concern. Like if we're spending, I think it's like $30 billion to build some new, detention centers and everything. One is just like a general like how morally could we treat immigrants if we're rounding them up and putting them in the detention centers? I have not seen that go well historically. And then again, the second one is just like the more kind of broad economic concern of like, I don't even think that this is it's likely not a net positive for the deficit, right, or for our economy in general.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
We had a
go ahead,
question for
please.
no frown on that. No frown. So one of the things you stated before was that by attracting a lot of these low skill immigrants to like work in construction, you are going to get like more construction happening because you're increasing labor supply, right?
Yeah.
All right. So would you admit that that does harm like local workers who are in that field because now they're having increased like demand, like increased supply in the product they're selling, which is their labor, and so they're going to get
I
like
mean,
lower
it's going to
wages from it?
be. It's always just going to depend on the size of the amount of immigrants and on the how many people they're competing with, basically. So like you can look at like any like reasonable person, even okay, George Borjas, right? If you look at all of his studies for all the flaws I think they have, even he will tell you like it looks like immigrants like decrease wages a little bit for high school dropouts and basically have no effect on anyone else. And that's in the short term, right? Like a lot of his research on the Madrigal boat lifts is controversial because, it looks like wages quickly rebound after he initially found that they dropped somewhat for low skill immigrants. But I do think that most of the evidence shows that immigrants basically have a null effect on the wages. And when they do, it only affects about maybe at most 8% of the U.S. workforce.
Wait,
All right, yeah. So I would agree with you on like a lot of that, but one of the things I have a problem with is that when it comes to like people are more than willing to accept a lot of low skill immigration workers, right? But not when it comes to the same problem. It's like when you look at the Cuban doctor program that was cut under Obama, you saw a lot of doctors here. So a lot of low skill workers do feel there's a double standard here, saying, hey, we want all these low skill workers because we don't want to pay like our local construction worker a lot to be building us a house, but we don't want to have all these doctors or stuff coming in from overseas and causing our price to go down.
I mean, I'm probably more in favor of high skill immigration than I am of low skill immigration. I can't speak for how politicians have thought about it historically or whatever, but I think we should have more high skill immigration as well as low skill immigration.
Yeah, and so this would be my core attack here then, is that by having like a solid border procedure, because like if you're a high skill immigrant, there's no reason for you to really cross the border. Whether you can't work can't work as a doctor if you cross the border illegally. You need all these certifications and credentials coming over. So this illegal immigration typically only harms the lower skill end, and it doesn't really affect the higher skill end. If you really wanted to increase higher skill immigration and get this down, wouldn't you want to just have like your border secured and then advocate for more higher skilled immigration?
I mean, again, it kind of depends what you mean by like secure border, right? Like I think we have the mechanisms already without even extra funding to essentially secure the border. I mean, Donald Trump has basically cut border crossings to zero, whatever, by just like not processing asylum claims, right? So I think we already have those mechanisms. Like part of the bill I know is like extra funding for the border wall. It's like, brother, we already have a border wall, like most of the border. Like, do we really need more? That's not going to have that big of an effect, So I think to the extent that we want to decrease low skill immigration, which again I don't really want to do, it's like I believe we already have the mechanisms by which to secure the border. I believe you don't have to spend a bunch of money on detention centers to deport people who are already here, and I believe you should just make it easier to legally immigrate to the U.S. without so that less people are coming over illegally.
Yeah, my only contention here would be is that I'm just talking from like a political perspective. Do you think it would be more like politically advantageous to say to people, hey, I want more immigrants, and I'm just not only going to target like low skilled people? It's like then you could get these low skilled workers who are typically against immigration, be like, hey, look, your doctor visits are going to be cheaper. You're going to have quicker time to go see a doctor. You're going to have more time to see this, right? But with the way
I'm sure that's always going to be.
They're only getting affected.
I'm sure that's almost always going to be more politically advantageous, but I don't really this isn't a conversation about how we should message on it. It's a conversation about whether this is a net benefit. I think all the evidence shows that these type of deportations are not a net benefit, or that type of border security and everything.
It's a benefit on like how this bill would work out, and so like if this bill passes and we do actually get to like control who's coming in and out, from that perspective, now we can say, hey, now that we have a control board, we can control who comes in, and that way we can say like low skill workers, we may be importing 1 million low skill workers, but we're also importing 1 million high skilled workers. So both you in the lower classes and the people in the upper classes are both getting affected the same.
And to be clear,
I mean, if this bill
is law now.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
Yeah, it was signed on.
Talking about like it's going to be how it would benefit in the future.
I mean, you know, if maybe if this bill had some positives for high skill immigrants, then maybe we could have that discussion. But I mean, look, like I said, I believe we already have the mechanisms by which to enforce the border. I don't believe we need a bunch of border wall on a bunch of empty territory that no one is crossing anyway. And you know, from my understanding, this bill does introduce certain like fees even for like higher skill immigrants to try to come to the U.S. And I think that's obviously a net bad. And again, if you guys are so concerned about the strain that immigrants put on like the welfare system and everything, like, why are we not talking about how much interest rate costs are probably going to go up because of the bill? Why are we not talking about how much the deficit in general is going to go up just because of the tax cuts? Like,
Okay, well, why don't we talk about that then if you want to talk about that? So we mentioned the immigration stuff, and we can get back to it. I'm sure we will at some point. But what other issues, to non-fawn and to vigilante, what other issues do you have with this bill? Why do you think it's a net negative overall? Please be specific. Yeah.
okay, so I mean, for one, I think it, like I said in my opening, increases the deficit in a time where we should be looking at trying to decrease it. I'm not like 100% opposed to cutting spending in some areas. Obviously, I'm probably more progressive, so I'm going to be in favor of more raising taxes and cutting spending. But we're cutting taxes way too fucking much at a time where we shouldn't be doing that because the economy is relatively strong right now, and you know that's it's coming at a especially I would say like dangerous time, right? Because the debt is already so high, and interest rate costs tend to go up. Not quite exponentially, but more than linearly with the outstanding debt. And it's at a time where no one wants to buy our debt because there's so much uncertainty around tariffs and things like that other countries simply are not buying as many U.S. bonds. There was already a Treasury auction recently that did not have as many buyers as they normally do because there's so much uncertainty about these things.
I'd say my biggest problem with this bill is going to be the Medicaid cuts. I mean, it cut $88 billion for Medicaid. It added the federal work requirements, which work requirements in general are okay, but they should be left up. Those are one thing that should be left up to the states. And then it also increased the copay for people that are from 100% of the poverty line to 138% of the poverty line to $35. Previously, it was like $3.
Okay, well, what are your answers to that, gentlemen on the other side? So Loki and Board Cows, what would you have to say to someone who says, I think that the deficit is too high already and it's getting higher. This bill cuts Medicaid, and I like Medicaid. It cuts SNAP, and I like SNAP. Why is it still a good bill despite those things? Or do you think that those cutting Medicaid is good actually? What are your thoughts here? Go ahead, please.
All
I
right,
feel like I'm
I'll go.
pulling teeth on getting the discussion going here. I'm not gonna lie, right? You guys are all very sedate, but go ahead.
I like to let people finish, but I largely agree with Nofan. That is probably like my biggest critique of the bill is the increased spending. For people that are like really, I don't think it's as big of a deal as people tend to make it out to be, because we've been spending like crazy. Both parties have been doing it since Bush. And the big problem I see is just structural, because we seem to be in like one party's in and the next party's in, and no party wants to be the guy that's like, I'm going to save a lot of money. That way, all the money I save can just be spent by the next party, and it's going to continue on down the line like that. No political party is willing to make that sacrifice, and kind of hard for me to say, hey, Republicans are at fault for this. Can't expect them to do
Yeah,
that.
but
As for the medic,
this doesn't really save money because it adds money to the deficit.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. I can't really blame the Republicans for spending money when it's like, if they save money, then the next guy that gets in is just going to spend money and be like, oh, look at all the good I'm doing for you. Same with the Democrats. I can't blame the Democrats for spending a lot of money, because if they save money, the Republicans are going to come in, spend all the money that they save, and be like, oh, hey, look at all the good I'm doing for you. Yeah, I think if you're worried about the deficit, it's a stronger like structural problem that we have to somehow fix. I don't have any good solutions for it. If you guys have some, let me know, but I don't have any good ones. As for Medicaid, like, if you are an able-bodied person, from what I was reading, I think having like a work permit is kind of what you kind of need to do. Some of it,
I mean,
I don't know. I have to like read into it a bit more, but that's about it. No, respond.
So look, I mean, a big issue with the like Medicaid work requirements, obviously, it's just, you know, for one, there just are not many like able-bodied working people on Medicaid who like aren't working. It's like, I think it's like 3% of working age people on Medicaid are not working. And if you think about it, those are not the people consuming Medicare benefits, right? Young men sitting at home all day playing on their Xbox are not the ones getting expensive surgeries or anything. It's the disabled people, it's the elderly people, it's the children, it's you know, people that actually consuming the benefits are people who work requirements aren't supposed to affect. Now, obviously, we know historically from states like Arkansas that have imposed work requirements, most people who lose benefits due to work requirements are people who are working, right? We have evidence of this also from when COVID era eligibility rules were changed, right? Like states sent out notices requiring people to recertify their eligibility. 70% of people who lost benefits from that were not people who weren't eligible. They were people who messed up the paperwork, right? So at the end of the day, with work requirements, you don't get the desired effect of able-bodied people working. You get a bunch of poor people get fucked out of their benefits, and you get a bunch of bureaucrats in the U.S. government trying to track how many, you know, filling out more paperwork, wasting more time trying to track these things. That's why a lot of libertarians, by the way, don't like these work requirements either.
I don't agree with like universal Medicaid in the first place. I don't have a causal obligation to another person. This is upon them. When it comes to the action of when it comes to the action of Medicaid, I completely believe that we should cut Medicaid, Social Security, and a lot of actions like this, which I agree with Trump. He is going to be cutting the action of Medicaid a lot more, unless if one of you guys can give me a justified like causal obligation that I have for these people, why I
Take
should
another
pay.
shot.
I
so
mean,
it's
look,
more. I would say it's less of a causal obligation. It's more of we're going to have to pay taxes and things like that in general. It's better for the government to benefit us as the citizens with the taxes we pay instead of doing things like overfunding police or overfunding the military or overfunding
I
ICE.
agree with police,
There,
ICE, and them because they protect private property.
I
When it comes to the
it's
action of ICE
hold
being
on.
able to stop the infringement,
It,
where like illegal immigrants actively, like if you're going to sit here, we are paying the taxes for this. So if we're going to cut the tax spending or any action like this, yeah, I'm going to say that we should just get rid of these actions or limit it to the most we can.
things
I mean,
like
look,
Medicaid, things like
Vigilante.
the Pell Grant and all that are all net positives for society. I mean, it
Oh, and I posted
Medicaid.
something since
Oh,
you wanted to sit
But
here
just
and say
let
that.
hold on. Let Vigilante finish his point, then you can add. But Vigilante, go ahead, please.
Medicaid allows a lot of hospitals to continue to keep running. It pays for the people who aren't insured, whether or not they are on Medicaid, but through subsidies. It is what allows a lot of hospitals to keep running. That's why Medicaid is a good thing. This bill, a lot of the cuts that it cut, a lot of things that it cuts are literally those funds. So a lot of hospitals are going to end up closing because of this. It prevent and it also prevents more people from being uninsured, which means the doctor's offices and stuff are still getting paid instead of just having to take on the burden of millions of people that don't have medical coverage.
right. I mean, I think
Oh, and
clearly, you know, the outcomes from having Medicaid seem to be like pretty positive, right? Like I understand you personally, you know, may have your own theory of or own belief in private property and, you know, whatever autonomy concerns you may have with that. But look, certainly, like it seems like there's evidence that, like, oh, if you enroll a bunch of people in Medicaid, it seems like you do reduce their risk of mortality. Well, at like not at super insane costing, it's like $170,000 per life year or something. While also just, you know, securing, you know, I think it is just a net positive that, you know, poor people's suffering is reduced because they don't have to deal with the stress of medical bankruptcy. They don't have to deal with the stress of maybe not being able to get preventative treatment and having more expensive treatments later on. That just seems to be like an overall net good thing for society.
Oh, and you made the positive claim. What was the percentage of people that use like Medicaid and they don't work? You were making like a small percentage about this.
Yeah, it seems to be like about 3 to 5%, depending on what survey you use.
Can I get a source for this? Because when we look at KFF, typically when it comes to people, the biggest part is going to be people working full time. And then from this, if we go into the situation, like disability or any action taking place, working full time, this is going to be based off of them. If they're actively working a job, it's going to be on them. They can find a job that gives them medical or not. But to the situation of like working part time or like caregiving or not working because of disability, it's only 10%. Majority of this is going to be people that are working full time. I would just say that these people have like the obligation, if they want this like insurance, it's upon them.
Right. So for one, I mean, my source, Matt Brunegg has some good articles about this, right? Like I think he has 2 articles about this using some different surveys, and both of them basically find the same thing, that it's between like 3 to 5% of people are people on Medicaid who aren't working like long term, right? And the rest of them are disabled or would soon be off Medicaid in like less than a year, or it maybe didn't work 80 hours in 1 month, but worked 80 hours or more than 80 hours almost like every other month, right? So we might have conflicting sources or whatever, but from the data I've seen from Matt Brunegg using 2 different surveys, this is a very small group of people. And again, this group of people is not the one consuming their health benefits. They're not the ones driving the cost of Medicaid. It's the people who are disabled. Okay, it's the people who get these expensive surgeries and require expensive treatment. What was the other thing? Sorry, I think there was one other thing you mentioned.
Which one? When it comes to the people actively working, it's their obligation to get medical if they want this.
Oh,
it's not
right.
everyone else's burden.
I mean, look, again, so, one, I would say, like, generally, like, it's kind of hard to say that, like, it is, people's obligation to go find a job to get health care when, like, obviously, like, macroeconomic conditions and everything, play a big role in that, right? Like, I would say, obviously, involuntary unemployment is the thing. Employers are the one that, set the hours, they set the demand for labor, right, based on macroeconomic conditions generally. So it's hard to say that, like, on an individual level, it's like really someone's fault for not being able to find employment that can cover their health insurance, right? But again, like, it just seems like it is just a net benefit, like it is just a.
There's a lot of jobs that actively give health insurance. If they are working a job that doesn't
Right.
give health insurance, in this hypothetical, let's just say that they enjoy doing this job, but it doesn't give health like insurance, and they want to keep doing this act. Is this on us to pay for their health insurance, or is it on them?
I think it's a net benefit to pay for the health insurance.
Wait,
yes,
you're saying that but even with this situation, I would still say that it's their obligation for this action. I have no moral obligation to them, and with the act being done,
I
where
understand.
it's coming out of my taxes for Medicaid and other actions. Yeah, you can say as much as you want that, oh, it's a net benefit that they're going to be able to contribute whatever the fuck, but with the act of me still paying for their insurance that I do not have an obligation to, I find this immoral.
I understand you don't believe that you have an obligation to do it. That's probably because of your own like theory of private property, which I probably have pretty major disagreements with. But I think like what the government should concern itself with is like generally just doing programs that make its citizenry better off. And I think that's what most people's moral intuition is. And I think we should probably focus on doing things that do that. So Medicaid seems to be that thing. And I also would just ask, do you deny that like involuntary unemployment is a thing? Do you think that anyone could just get a job at any time if they wanted to?
Yeah, I would just say it's on them. If they want like a certain type of job, there's very much actively the job market is open right now for people.
Right. What about, so here's a question. What about in a recession?
When was the last time you were in the job market?
Where?
I said, when was the last time you were in the job market?
I've been in it since I got out of active duty military.
So are you
Okay,
no, like I've been in the job market since like January, no problem.
What he's asking,
I think it means he's
hold on,
working right now.
let me bridge this because I think you guys are talking past each other, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Vigilante. But what I think that he's asking you is, when's the last time you looked for a job?
Not even like 4 months ago, 5 months.
Okay.
I got hired within like 4 days.
Because last time I looked for a job, it took me like 6 months to find a job.
Were you trying to look for a certain type of job field, or were you looking for the?
No, I was applying to fucking Walmart and shit too, and it still took me like 6 months to find a fucking job.
What about manual labor? Did you apply there?
I ended up working in a factory. That's where I currently work.
So you understand that there's day labor that you can go to where they will be able to help you get a job really quick, or when it comes to the other situations. So if you want a job, you can actually do this pretty fucking easy. Best case that we can look at is day labor in every state.
No, I will concede a little bit. I also have a little bit of a special situation where I have severe back problems, so I can't do super intensive manual labor. So like I do have to be a little bit picky. Like I can't apply to the shit that you're talking about, but I can do like Walmart. I can do certain types of factory work, stuff like that.
So you were looking for a
So
certain type of job field. When it comes to the job market, there's actively manual labor is one of the biggest ones, CDLs, where there's a bunch of companies that are actively willing to pay you to be able to get your CDL and cover the schooling. When it comes to truck drivers, yeah, there's a lot of blue collar jobs that people do not want to do, which if we're talking job market, this is part of it. Most people would like to be inside. If you want like a source for this, I can just say that this is anecdotal, or I can actually give you a source for this.
All right, and then
no, I won't
Oh,
disagree on that.
wait.
There's a
Yeah,
there's a
I just want to
reason
ask.
why when it comes to like farm work and stuff, there's a lot that's mostly covered by illegal immigrants or immigrants in general. So
Right. So,
Go
two
ahead,
things.
Duncan.
Again, I would stress most Medicaid benefits are not paid out to people who otherwise could be working. A lot of it is just people who are disabled, and I think Medicare is still a net benefit
Yeah,
for people like
since
that
you
at the
made a
very
positive
least.
claim, I
But
would like a
additionally,
source for this.
what? Sorry.
You made a positive claim here that it's mostly, or like the majority of it is going to be on the disability, which with the source I gave only said 10% of this is.
10% of people on it, or 10% of claims paid
Yeah,
out?
10%. Yeah, when it comes to the payout action of like people being on like Social Security, not social, but like Medicaid, only 10% of it is typically going to be some type of person that has some type of medical issue or like where they can't work. Where it
Do you think
raises
how much
the
of it is
Medicaid.
children or elderly people that aren't expected to work either?
Yeah, when it comes to children, they're going to add this into the 7.8% of like the people that they did inside of the study.
So
Okay, I mean,
people not
I can look into it.
required to work
I
from
kind
what
of
I'm reading. Oh, my bad.
look. I mean, I kind of doubt that's true, but maybe it's true. It's certainly, I would say, a significant portion of Medicaid is people who are disabled or children or elderly, people who should not be, people who are not expected to work and still need health care, and I still think it's a net benefit to provide it to them. But I would just like an answer to this question: Do you believe that involuntary unemployment exists during a recession?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would just say during that action that there might be a chance where like jobs are very low. And with this, there's still going to be a lot of businesses that are actively looking to hire. When we look at receptions, which one would you say was our last recession?
Probably 2020, right? I mean,
Yep. What was one of the biggest job fields that in 2020 we're still actively looking to hire people?
presumably healthcare, but that's usually a pretty high skill.
Healthcare and at the same time construction or any type of blue collar or CDLs if you want to look at that one too.
Sure, but look, my point was just this. Obviously, like you conceded that there is such a thing as involuntary unemployment during a recession.
There's
For one,
still
I would still say,
jobs actively looking to hire, so there's no
okay,
sense by me.
did you conceded? Correct me if I'm wrong. That you do believe there is such a thing as involuntary unemployment during a recession.
Maybe in a blue once in a blue moon, but like
Once in a blue moon.
generally,
Okay,
yep,
okay.
generally when it comes to a reception, there's still actively blue collar jobs that are looking to hire, and a lot of people do not want to do the blue collar jobs because I
So
would
true.
just say that they feel like they're above it.
Okay, so we can see that involuntary
Right.
unemployment exists. But my question is, presumably, you wouldn't even think that if there was involuntary unemployment, we should be giving these people Medicaid anyway, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't have
Right. So
cause
why is like it seems kind of dumb for you to say like every single time we mention like the benefits Medicaid have, you're just like, oh well, people can just like get jobs if they need them, right? People just go
They
out
can
and like
get
get these jobs or whatever. When really your issue is like a much more like much more like fundamental, like I just don't believe I should help other people or the government should help other people because it
not with my
needs to
tax dollars.
take my
I would
money
just
to
say-
do so.
Yeah, I would just say that if anyone wants Medicaid, there should be a program where they would be able to like put themselves into the situation where they can agree with it and pay taxes. But when it comes to the general population, if people do not want Medicaid or do not agree with it, they should be able to opt out of this. I would advocate for more of a society like this.
I mean,
right.
certainly, like, I would say, I understand there's obviously still arguments you can make that taxes are involuntary and everything, but we do live in a democracy. You do have the ability to, vote in these things and change that. But yeah.
I feel like we're kind of going in circles here. So I just want to know, Fran, you keep saying that like Medicare, most of it is being paid to people with like disabilities, that are seniors that actually need it, right? And that is true. Would you acknowledge then that in this bill, those people are already still protected? Pregnant women, children, seniors, and people with disabilities.
I mean,
That's you guys.
their access to Medicaid is still protected, but it still does the things like cutting the funding for hospitals, reimbursement and stuff. So while they'll still be able to access Medicaid, they're going to end up long term end up traveling more to be able to access medical care, which a lot of
Okay.
those kind of people don't
Right.
have a harder time traveling. So
Well,
So,
that's
I
a
mean,
different
look,
criticism, because my critique for these cuts would just be, it seems largely performative in basis. It's $100 million out of what, a 1.2, $1.3 trillion program. It's just performative. I don't really think much is going to go on with it. They're just being like, oh, we are trying to fund it. Again, this goes back to my whole fiscal responsibility. They're trying to put the veneer on it. I don't really have much of a position.
I mean, look, again, the important thing to consider, like, work requirements do kick out, a fuck ton of people who are, eligible for Medicaid still. We have evidence of that from a bunch of different states who have done that. And then, like, there are other changes it makes as well. Like, it repeals, like, some Biden era rules. Like, I think it makes, like the open enrollment, like, window a little, a little shorter. I think it also has some, yeah, right. And I think it also, like, it has some like ACA, like, tax credit, like, repeals. So things like that as well are going to reduce, Medicaid benefits paid to people who, even shouldn't be working and things like that. And then obviously hospital closures as well would be a concern.
Yeah, so I can see those critiques. My problem is a lot of those come into like the administrative state just being highly inefficient here in the U.S. because we still do a lot of things about like paperwork. When you go to other countries like Estonia, they have like apps on your phones that you can like get your driver's license, everything from. And so my critique, like to solve that problem, I think we're kind of going to speak past each other because I have a different solution than what you guys would say.
I mean, look, I think the administrative state is not particularly efficient in the U.S. either. That's why I don't like that this bill increases it in like so many cases, in so many places, right? So like Medicaid work requirements is one example, and like SNAP work requirements, that is like increasing bureaucracy, increasing the administrative burden on the state. All these like random like tax deductions, like, are not efficient. I think it adds like about 20 like random new tax deductions, some of which you can only get if you itemize your taxes, and like this puts a lot more strain on the IRS and everything, right? And like, if you want to fix the tax system, you should move to a simpler tax system, and you can probably make it simpler while making it more progressive as well, even if you guys don't value progressivity as much.
Yeah, I would largely agree with that. But again, I think the solution that we're getting to is kind of a bit different. So bill doesn't really cover what my solution would be, so I guess we just kind of agree there. But the administrative state is kind of fucked.
Well, I mean,
Administrative state is kind of
Yeah.
fucked. Let's hold on, gang, because look, I'm not gonna lie. This is you guys are just kind of autistically staring at each other, and it feels weird. If this was a first date, I would be like, this is going very poorly. I don't
No, thank
know
you.
what's going
Thank
on
you.
with the like connection here, or maybe it's just the flow. But it's man, I'm not getting laid after this date, is what I'm saying, and I want to get laid. So this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna change it up a little bit. We're gonna get some actual flowing conversation going. The administrative state. What is wrong with the administrative state? When you say the administrative state, what do you mean? Be specific, please. Go ahead.
All right, let's speak of the administrative state. I'm speaking of every single time you kind of have to interact with the government. Like, what are you doing? All the forms you have to fill out. Nothing is kind of like streamlined. When you go to other countries, last country I was in was Estonia. Girl I was talking to there was like, oh yeah, I can go get my driver's license renewed on this app. I can go do this on this app. Like everything is just kind of centralized and streamlined in the entire process. In the US, if you want to interact with the state, it's like, oh, I need to get my driver's license right out of the DMV. I need to get this. I need to go over here. I'm trying to get this license. I need to go over here. It's just all kind of fraction, and with the technology we have, we should kind of be able to centralize it. It's my own complaint to it.
Yeah, I mean, not to mention the fact that we're one of the only countries that you like actually have to file a tax return, which is actually retarded because the government already knows how much we owe in taxes and can just tell us instead of us having to file a fucking tax return.
Right. I mean, I think, usually when I say administrative state, I just think of like the administrative burden of doing things, whether it be like filing your taxes or filing for government benefits. Right. I think usually these things are like typically inefficient. I think means testing in general, like does not seem to have particularly great outcomes, and it doesn't achieve what it wants to achieve. And then I think, like I said, I think you should move to a much simpler tax code where we don't have a bunch of, random deductions, where we don't have a bunch of letting you depreciate some assets over, 5-year periods, and we should have switched to a much simpler type of consumption tax.
I just okay, my God. let's talk
Here.
about. Let's try this. Let's
Okay, you
talk.
pick a topic we all agreed on. What do you want, Wix?
I know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Well, hold on.
we all
I
agree
understand. I
tax is
understand.
bad.
What are we? What are
Yeah,
our
you
thoughts
found
here?
one of the points. We'll
Hold on.
agree.
What of
We
our?
all
What of,
agree
what of
tax
the
is bad.
one of the things
Well,
that
I like
happened
taxes.
here. Well, fair enough. One of the things that happened during the run up to the bill is Marjorie Taylor Greene, Thomas Massey, a bunch of others actually came out publicly and condemned a lot of what was in the bill. For example, there was restrictions on AIs and stuff initially, or lack of restrictions on AIs or something, right? That a lot of people found surprising that were in the bill. Why is it that Republicans who were very against this bill decided to cave in and suddenly support it? Are we being served? Are our best interests being served by the people in Congress? Why or why not? And Democrats, to the Democrat side, what more, if anything, could Democrats have done to prevent this bill from being passed? And why didn't they do it? Go ahead, please. My
Alright,
God,
well,
someone! Jesus
I-
Christ!
I-
Okay,
So,
all of you suck. Go ahead.
well, I like to try to let other people speak first. So, on the topic of what the Democrats could have done, there's really not much they could have done to prevent it, but there's a lot they could have done to kind of change it. So the vote to pass it was really close, and it's kind of like you have to choose between that or worse. And so a Democrat could have came forward and said, "Yeah, I really dislike these certain policies here. I'll vote for the bill, but you have to get rid of like this one thing or change this thing up." And that would have been an avenue for them to try to like, we don't need to worry about Ron Paul. We don't need to worry about this guy. No Democrats really did that. They're all holding firm on the line, saying we're not going to do it, even though they could technically get maybe a slightly worse version in their eyes of the bill, but none of them want to do that.
I
Yeah, I
mean,
mean,
look, like
one
I
of
don't
the
know, I don't know what the Democrats should have done, but I don't think that there's any version of this bill that is going to be remotely palatable to Democrats, and I don't believe Democrats should be going to vote for a
Tax
bill
deficit.
that cuts Medicaid or anything. That tax deficit?
So what about the
Yeah, I would just say
Republicans,
with
right?
the tax deficit, when we look at Democrats, typically they want to impose a higher tax deficit. We can look under Biden. We can look at most Democrat presidents in like the last 20 years plus. Typically, when it comes to the tax deficit that they agreed with, I would just say that one of the biggest things that I disagreed with is going to be the action of the tax deficit, which most of the Democrats kind of agreed with. If you
I
want to
mean, I
switch
think
to this and
there's,
impose
I
it.
don't have it like stats on this on hand, but I think there's like mixed evidence as for which party causes bigger deficits. I mean, certainly I would say, it seems plausible that Democrats probably want more government spending, but they also want a lot more taxes, right? So, obviously Biden, both Biden and Trump, obviously, had a COVID era stimulus that kind of distorted numbers as well. But there were periods under Biden where the, deficit was decreasing. Now you can say that's because of the end of COVID era benefits, but I mean, still, we had a budget surplus under Clinton, obviously. Obama had to deal with 2008, and I think that bailout.
Yeah, to go back
was,
like 25 years.
right. Well, I mean, we
And then we could also talk about how the fucking Republicans just held up when the initial vote happened. The bill was going to fail, and then there were like 17 different fucking Republican holdouts, and then the Speaker of the House just fucking held the vote open infinitely so that they could pressure the Republicans into fucking passing the bill that didn't want to pass the bill in the first place because it would have failed.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure some of the last votes were Republican. If I'm not mistaken, it was like Kentucky or Louisiana, where he was like, yeah, he didn't agree with the tax deficit. Because when it comes to conservatives, typically they want like the lower tax deficit. Yes, more spending on the military, but cut the other programs, which I agree with.
Why does it matter? Why does the deficit matter? Why does the debt matter at the end of the day?
Yeah, because when it
Alright.
comes to Congress, every single time that they put their hand into the cookie jar, when we give them 10 cents, they spend $1. So instead of them actually finding out what programs that they should fund, they try doing everything across the board instead of prioritizing which ones are more important than the others.
I mean, I don't know if that's an answer to why the deficit matters. I mean,
Alright,
they,
so-
the thing I'll say, like, I don't think the deficit is like the biggest concern in the world or anything. But again, like I think that this is a rather large deficit increase over the course of 10 years. It's like at least 3 trillion, probably closer to 5 trillion, right? And that's at a time when our outstanding debt
what?
is already very. What?
So what? So what?
So you're probably going to see interest
The
rates
largest
increase.
deficit increase. So what?
Yeah, so you're probably going to see interest rate increase. You're probably going to see more inflation as well. You might see lower growth because of the interest rate increases. And then obviously in the future, we might have to raise taxes to try to undo what we did now. And then obviously in the future, if we have a recession or something and we want to do government stimulus, it's going to be we're not going to have as much fiscal space to do another bank bailout or do another American Rescue Plan because of how much we're spending now when we don't have to.
All right, so the big problem with the debt, in my opinion, is that the government only really has 3 ways to get money. They can tax it, they can borrow it, and they can print it. Each one of these has drawbacks that are going to be pretty big. And as the debt grows, you're going to have, so like if they decide to just print money because they need to fund this stuff, that's just going to increase inflation. If they raise taxes, you can raise taxes up to a certain point if you agree with the Laffer curve before things just start dropping off and start hindering economic growth. And if you borrow it, borrowing is probably, I would argue, is kind of like the worst of the 3 options. I don't really mind inflation that much. I hold a lot of assets, but borrowing it's added onto your fiscal spending that you have to do every year. It's kind of mandatory spending, and it eats away at anything else you can put at it. Like we spend like $1 trillion on the debt this year. That $1 trillion could go to help out a lot of other people. If you're a progressive, if you are a big hawkish guy, it could go towards the military to be like, we are going to uphold international order. If you're a big borders guy, it could go to the border. There's so many different things it could do. But instead, we're just paying interest on it.
There are
look,
positive ways that we could raise taxes. I mean,
Right,
we
I
could
think-
raise the top marginal tax rate, we can improve the capital gains taxes, things like that. There are plenty of positive ways that we could increase taxes.
Right. I think the U.S. clearly has quite a bit of room to raise taxes if we wanted to. Like, we're definitely not on the wrong side of the Laffer curve and even things like the capital gains tax. But I also think that, like, you could probably move to some type of progressive consumption tax, to some type of resource rent taxes as well, and probably raise as much, if not more, in taxes than we do now, while also, having favorability towards investment and savings still. Well, actually more than we do now because we tax that.
What do you think? Like,
literally just tax
rate we
legalize.
could have?
What?
I mean,
Sorry?
one thing that we could do to raise a bunch of taxes is just tax legalize and regulate marijuana. I mean, we've seen how much that is produced in taxes in states like Ohio, states like Colorado, states like California, etc.
All right. I mean, I don't have a problem with that, but towards the left,
Same.
like, where do you think where do you think the tip of the Laffer curve would be at, like 35% tax burden, 50% tax burden? Like, where do you think it would roughly be at?
For what type of tax?
Whatever one you kind of want to like initialize. Like overall, like
I think if you did a progressive personal expenditures tax, I think like the top rate on that could probably be above 50%. At very high brackets. I think, on capital gains tax, which I don't particularly like the capital gains tax, it would be less, but even then, I think you could probably still raise more revenue from increasing the capital gains tax. I don't know exactly what it's at right now, but it can probably go to about 33, maybe more, without decreasing revenue.
$20 from Alexander Rin. At least I'm making a little money today. Thank God. Maybe I'll get, like, I don't know, buy some bullets or something. I don't know. A bunch of weak-willed toddlers on here. Even after saying most people who lost their Medicare were people who couldn't fill out the forms right, Mr. Duty said, was success removing people who didn't belong? What does that even mean at the end there, Alexander Rin? I don't know.
Or was it successful that Medicare removed people that didn't belong?
What
People
does
didn't
that mean?
belong, yeah, get the hell off of it. Like, I don't
Yeah.
agree with it.
I mean,
I guess
That
like
seems like a
here,
fair
let's
question.
look
I
at
think
SNAP.
everybody would agree.
Let's
If somebody was abusing Medicare, would you want them off of it?
hold on. Let's narrow this down to SNAP, right? We haven't talked about SNAP benefits and things like that. Is everyone familiar what SNAP is?
Yes.
Yeah, it's the
Okay. Non-Fawn, I trust you to give a good, short definition of SNAP, or at least understanding of SNAP. So could you tell the audience what SNAP
it's essentially
is for this next
it's essentially just the aid program. It's a means tested program where we give essentially vouchers to people, for mostly poor people and people with children, to buy food for their families.
Why to those of you who are supporting this big, beautiful bill, right? Why do you support the cuts that it is making to SNAP benefits?
We're using the money in other locations. One of the best cases is going to be us using it in the military or cutting this program to a very fine line. When people abuse our like social programs, we can look at Medicaid, everything like this. There are people that are going to abuse this, and I would rather not have like as many people that abuse SNAP. Yes, typically it's a small percentage, but even with this having like a more hard line when it comes to people trying to use social programs, they would just have to be able to prove this to a better case.
It's so look, one, I mean, like, obviously, there are, I would say, there are probably, I don't know the exact percentage, but a very, very small percentage of people probably abuse SNAP benefits, right? And in exchange, we get a bunch of families who are able to feed their children. That seems like it's probably overall a good thing. And you maybe could have an argument for cutting SNAP if it wasn't in a bill that also cut a bunch of other taxes. It also is going to raise interest rates so much that the cost of servicing the debt is probably going to exceed the money saved from SNAP.
We have a lot of fat people in the U.S. I don't know, cutting food benefits. It's probably good for them to go on a diet. Probably my controversial take.
Wow. I mean, I don't have a ton of,
right. Let them starve.
Yeah, like I don't have a ton of research on SNAP.
We got a childhood obesity epidemic. All right, those kids need to be running.
I mean, I don't have a ton of evidence on SNAP specifically, but it seems like, to whatever extent we think that it increases obesity, we should probably just be taxing the things that we think are increasing obesity. So, and that'll actually decrease obesity for everyone, not just people on SNAP.
Food increases obesity. You eat too much, it's too many calories. Like, what do you mean?
Well, I mean, it's clearly.
So what are the things
taxing food?
Well, I'm probably for taxing like sugar and maybe like corn syrup. At least ending the subsidies to corn farmers that we give.
So one of the things that this bill does for SNAP is actually change it to where it no longer determines the amount of benefits that people get from food stamps by like looking at food prices. So like it's no longer going to like look at like how much healthy food costs and stuff like that, and instead it ties the current amount that people get for like being a 4-person family, which is $975, and just ties that into inflation instead of actually looking at the cost of food.
Wait, $950 is enough to feed a family of 4. Do you disagree with this?
Kind of.
I actually don't know.
It's so there's more to it than that. Like I'm talking like the max amount that you can get is the $975, which you're correct. Like right now, it should be enough to like buy groceries and stuff like that. But what this does is, so the way that it worked before is they would look at like the cost of food and stuff like that, in order to determine how much people are going to get. What this bill does is change it to where that is no longer the case, and it just ties that $975 to inflation instead. Food prices, because of price gouging, aren't always going up with inflation. A lot of the times, food prices can go up and down based off of just general supply and demand. So it doesn't take into account how much food actually costs anymore, which is not a good thing.
I kind of disagree with the price gouging on food. We're in a largely free market on our food stuffs here in the U.S. It gets largely subsidized. I mean, if somebody's selling food for too expensive, someone's just going to come in and undercut them. Happens all the time. But I kind of want to get more specific here. So on the cuts to SNAP, are you guys all like familiar with them? Because I just brought them up. I had them in my documents here. I understand you all are against like the work requirements, so we're not going to go over that again. But what about the state cost sharing for high error states? What do you think of that?
Well, that was only added because of the senator from Alaska wanted to avoid the SNAP cuts, right? I don't support that, but that was added because what's her name, like Lisa Murkowski said, I don't want SNAP cuts to affect my citizens, and I guess Alaska has a higher error rate than most other states when it comes to SNAP benefits, so we're going to grant an exemption for this for states with high error rates so that my constituents can keep their SNAP benefits. I think that's fucking insane. I think she's weak for doing that. I think that's a horrible thing. Yeah.
All right, so we agree on that. If you're gonna make cuts, just make it all broadly. All right. What about
What's it?
the frequent eligibility redetermination? I can't fucking speak. Basically, they have to like they'll constantly check in to make sure you need to use it.
Yeah, I mean, again, I just think that the evidence does not show that like most of this means testing is like at all effective. Like, I think in my ideal world, and a lot of libertarians, by the way, agree with this. You might not, but like, we would just switch from a lot of these programs that have super high administrative burdens that give in-kind benefits to just some type of cash transfer program, because it's just not very efficient for the government to be trying to track constantly how much SNAP benefits you need and administer exactly as much as you need and make sure that you fill out these 50 forms, and we have to pay 10 bureaucrats to track you and spy on you all the time, right? Like it'd probably just be much more efficient to just have some type of negative income tax that do these programs.
Oh, perfect!
Yeah.
You're a big negative income
Absolutely.
tax enjoyer as well. I fucking love that. Don't meet many of those people around.
But then shouldn't you be against this bill for increasing all the things that make a negative income tax preferable to these in-kind programs, right? Like,
Not really. I would prefer a negative income tax to all these programs. So you make these programs like
Right,
way
right.
harder to get into. Like logically speaking, a lot of people are gonna get so frustrated. It's just like, hey, let's just get the negative income tax because even though
I mean, you're saying that,
I may
we
not
think
prefer
that
it, and we go this way.
I think it's unlikely that, politically people are going to say, oh, I'd so much rather have a negative income tax because I have to deal with like the increased administrative burdens from, from this bill or whatever. I think it's a better argument I think if you are in favor of negative income tax, partially because of the administrative burden, then you should be against the fact that this bill increases the administrative burden. I don't see this need for like an accelerationist argument for trying to get negative income taxes. Like, that seems silly to me.
Okay.
Okay, great response. We love it. Here we are talking, and I don't know exactly right where we're going, but I just the idea. Let's bring this back into general concepts. Maybe we'll get some traction going here, right? The general concept: does the government have a responsibility to its citizens to provide for its basic needs? Why or why not? Go ahead.
I mean, I
So
think
yeah,
Let's
Basic
hear
needs.
Loki first, and then we'll.
Yeah, so
Go from
basic
there.
needs for me is going to be being able to protect private property. So police department, military, I would have like the smallest like government. And when it comes to like the situations of like a lot of social programs, I do not agree. Happiness, okay, this is going to be subjective. This is upon them. If they want these types of like benefits or anything like this, they can be able to have this on like a small form with like communities or anything like this. It does not have to be from little Timmy that is 22 years old from Florida that is actively paying for someone else that is in California. Is bullshit.
Yeah, I mean, my argument
Yeah,
would
so
be
I
very, very simple. Like, I don't have like the same type of autonomy concerns that you might have. I think, the government should concern itself with doing programs that are a net benefit for citizens. I think most welfare programs end up being a net benefit to government citizens, so
Wait,
they
so
should
if you're
probably
saying a
do
net,
them.
like a social program, okay, let's go with a hypothetical. Let's just say that this government in this hypothetical wants to be able to like do one like horrible act to 1% of the population. The rest of the population is going to be okay by this action. Would you say that this program would be good?
I mean, obviously, if we're just like, presupposing like, oh, government, if we're doing basically a utility monster like reductio with government programs, like, I could like bite that bullet, like whatever. But
Okay,
like,
so would it be
welfare
okay if it
programs
comes to
just don't
slavery?
seem to have these type of effects.
Wait,
No, I don't
wait,
think slavery
wait,
maximizes
no, not
well-being.
fun.
But look,
Wait,
like you
wait,
have this,
wait,
you
no,
have
no,
these
not
same
fun.
type
It's a
of.
hypothetical. Wait, it's a hypothetical. So let's just say that you have to, like, 1% of your population is going to have to be a slave, and then 99% of the population is going to have the happiest life of their, well, like, ever. They're going to not have to work. They have medical, everything, but 1% of your population has to be slave. Would you bite this bullet?
So, I mean, if you literally just presuppose that it is an overall net utility gain, then like, sure, whatever. But I would say, like, obviously it's
Okay,
very
so you're okay with
unlikely
slavery in this
because of the.
situation.
So true, buddy. I mean, I would say, obviously, because I view slavery, like generally speaking, as like such a net utility negative, not just because of the suffering imposed on slaves, but also because I do believe there is value in society from developing heuristics such as like, oh, it is good to respect someone else's personal autonomy, right? I believe that's a good heuristic to have. So because
Wait,
of
is
those
it good
reasons,
to
I would say like
enforce?
it's very, it is like incredibly like unlikely that
Wait, is
obviously
it
in
good
any
to
real
enforce
world.
upon someone when it comes to actions like when it comes to like Medicaid? If they are not using Medicaid and they're still getting taxed for this, being able to pay for someone else, this is going to be the forced action. When it comes to slavery, this is going to be synonymous because you're actively forcing someone to do something that they do not agree with. So in this case, you're
Okay,
okay.
so the
You're justifying as slavery.
True, buddy. So again, if I could just
Define
finish my
slavery.
sentence here, right? So because I view slavery as having all these negatives associated with it, you'd have to have like an insane amount of like utility gain from doing slavery in order to justify that. And I would say it is incredibly unlikely that any like utility gain from slavery is going to be worth imposing a cost on slave. And again, I do think it is valuable just to develop rules, to develop heuristics that society operates off of. And I do believe something like the Constitution that protects those type of rights is a net benefit for society overall. But like again, I think you have like the same type of reductios on the other side, where if you're saying like what I value most is like I don't believe you can infringe on my property or whatever. It's like, okay, well I'm sure you've heard it before. Like what if we have like a baby in the middle of someone's lawn and the baby's gonna starve to death unless you go trespass
They
on their
don't have a
lawn?
causal obligation. Yeah, you don't have a
So
causal
wait, you would agree
obligation.
that you should kill that baby? You should not
Yeah, I have
trespass
no
to feed
problem
the
with this.
baby.
You do not wait when it comes to like the random kid. You do not have a causal obligation if they're on someone else's
Not,
private
no.
property.
Would it be wrong to
Yep,
do it? Would it be
it would
wrong
be
to do
wrong
it?
to infringe upon
It would
someone
be wrong
else's
to do
negative
it.
rights to their private property.
That's great.
Yep.
Okay. Do you also agree? Like I'm sure you've heard this hypothetical before too, where it's like, oh, you're invited into your friend's building on like the 8th floor, and you fall off the balcony and you grab onto a flagpole while you're falling down, and then so the person who owns that flagpole comes around and says, hey, that's my property. You can't trespass. Do you have to let go of that flagpole?
Yeah, I would just say you don't have a causal obligation when it comes to the action of infringing upon someone else's negative rights. They didn't cause you to be in the state of dependence. I would just say that your friend did, so they have like the moral obligation to make sure that you are taken care of when they are at your house. And if it's your negligence where this action takes place,
Hold
at
on,
the point,
none of that stuff is relevant. My question is, you are on someone's
wait, it is.
flagpole.
Wait, hold up a second. You said that you went over to your friend's house. So with the action of this is going to be a verbal agreement between two people. So his
Right. So I'm
obligation is
saying
to
you
make sure
have
that there's
consent
no
to go
harm.
into your
Yep.
neighbor's
So
house,
there,
right? You're not
so it's
trespassing
going
on
to
their
be a
property. You fall
yep.
off of their balcony, grab
Yep.
onto a flagpole someone else owns, right? Someone else owns this
Was it your
flagpole. And
negligence or was it his negligence?
once you catch on, it was an act. What do you mean? It was an act. It was an accident.
No, wait.
What do
If
you mean
it's
by
a
negligence? It was a
negligence, wait. If it's gonna be like you're like standing too close to the edge, or you hanging on to like let's just say like the balcony, or being so close to the balcony, then at that point it's your negligence. You do not have the rights
I
to
don't believe
infringe
it's
upon
relevant.
someone else.
I don't believe it's relevant either way. No, regardless if
It
it's your
is.
negligence or someone else's negligence. If you are holding onto the
You're on
flagpole
the balcony.
after,
There's a sudden earthquake. It's no one's fault, not your own, not anyone's. You fall off the balcony. You're
Wait, that's God's
falling.
hand.
Grab a flagpole to save yourself. The guy looks
Yeah.
out the window and says, "You're on my property. Get the fuck off."
Yep.
Do you have the duty to let go or no?
Yeah, you have the duty to let go. You're infringing upon someone else's negative rights to their private
right?
property.
I mean, this seems like obviously a pretty insane reductio versus like my
They didn't cause
reductio
you
is
to
just like,
wait. They didn't cause you to be in a state of dependence. With my reductio, I wouldn't be justifying slavery in any case because with the situation at hand, they didn't cause you to be in a state of dependence, or at the same time, you cannot inherently infringe upon someone else's negative rights. In certain cases, for your reductio, you're okay with slavery. I find that repulsive.
I mean, I find it repulsive that like you would say it's not okay to go help a baby that is starving
Yeah, I would just say
starving someone else's land.
slavery.
And again, like
Wait,
I don't know if you
Rather
like
repulsive
heard
here.
me
All right, let's
heard me like hold on. I don't know if like you heard me say we're like I think it is good to develop heuristics and general rules for society. So like obviously I'm okay with developing a general rule that says we can't infringe on someone else's like personal autonomy. I just think that like obviously that's not a like sort of intrinsically valuable thing.
Wait, it's not
Okay,
intrinsically
here,
valuable,
$10
is it?
because I gotta make some goddamn money here. Alexander Wren, thank you for the $10. Says, can you just ban anyone who uses the term causal obligation if your entire moral structure falls to causal obligation in the NAP, the Non-Aggression Pact for principle, if you will. For those of you who don't know, says you don't have anything to say worth being heard. We aren't going to ban anyone from this panel unless you give me obscene amounts of money, which I don't think you're prepared to do. That said,
Wait, how much money
Oh,
would they have?
you're worth money? How much you
Wait,
worth?
that said, tell you what, guys, tell you what we're gonna do. Okay, because
Well, I just have a question
go
for
ahead,
Tech
board
Top.
cow. Let's see.
Yeah, all
Let's
right.
see if you can say this.
You
Go ahead.
said, do you say it's have the responsibility to provide aid to their citizens? I would argue no. And a lot of times that you do provide aid to certain countries, you can see this in the foreign aid paradox, for example, where if you give money or goods to a different country, as in terms of helping them, you oftentimes just distort their markets and cause like drastic unemployment. So you got like the tailors over in like Africa, they get flooded with a bunch of shirts and pants and shoes, and all of them just start going out of business, and it just ends up harming their economy a bit more. You got a response to it?
I
I
think
mean, when it
like
comes to
oh, sorry.
I
I don't deny like theoretically these things like can happen. I would just stress like I probably disagree with to the extent to which we see them, but like in that case like these programs just would not be very beneficial, and we should just not do them.
Yeah, I would think the free market would probably have a better solution to it. You probably disagree with that.
Yeah, but you're hypothetical. You're also talking about foreign aid. We're talking about aid that goes to the actual citizens of said country. So in our case, things like Medicaid or the college grants, SNAP, things like that. I mean, those types of things, the things that actually go to the citizens of your country, are a net positive because they help people to be able to continue to contribute to society. Whereas what you were talking about was foreign aid, which is different.
I guess they're really two different in comparisons here. And the reason why I did go to foreign aid is that it's really hard to tell with like benefits that are here, but like what was the results before, what were the results after, what's like the dream scenario. Like there's a whole bunch of speculation, and every single study I've kind of read on it, it seems inconclusive. Some are just like, oh, this is the greatest thing ever. This is like the worst thing ever. When you look at foreign aid, you can literally see like what happens when the foreign aid starts, what happens when it stops, because a lot of time it doesn't go on forever. And, like what are the results?
Yeah, I mean, foreign aid in general is for the most part a good thing. We could look at how we helped Ukraine be able to defend themselves, um, and then you could look at like natural disaster relief. But as you said, it doesn't go on forever, and then a lot of the times they're kind of stuck trying to fix shit themselves. I mean, look at Haiti.
Okay.
So if we start doing like foreign aid, so should we continue doing this or cut them off at some point? Because if we do our foreign aid into another country, we could flood their markets and then at that point affect their economy.
How are we at foreign aid now? How do we get here?
In my opinion, I would say that we should cut it off at some point. I mean, it's just like
But
the
even when
fucking
we
war.
flood their market with our like medical or our technology, this is typically going to devalue or at the same time affect their market. Do you disagree with this?
Not necessarily. I mean, no, us giving them foreign aid is obviously going to put money into their economy that they're going to rely on to a
No,
degree.
it's going to affect their jobs because when it comes to like if I'm able to flood your market with insulin cheaper than you're able to produce this, is this a good thing?
I generally speaking, I would say yes,
Okay, so then
considering
if we go to
it's something that
war,
helps.
if we go to war with each other, then at that point that you aren't like relying on my insulin since I can like cut your cost, everything like this, and then you stop producing it, or like this should say that you minimize like your factories to like having 4 factories. Beforehand, you had 12 factories. With me doing this, where I'm able to flood your market and be able to devalue your products, at that point, I'm going to say that this is very bad because then at this point you're going to be losing jobs for your civilians, and at the same time, if there is an action that takes place where you go to war with me, then at that point your civilians are going to die.
I mean, yeah, you're not wrong there. I mean, I can't disagree with that.
I mean, you could. You could.
So,
But
so
that
then why
said,
should we do foreign aid?
I mean, I don't know why we're discussing foreign aid, buddy. But we can set up a foreign aid conversation another time. But
I mean, maybe people would actually talk about that subject, and we wouldn't
Well-
go in circles. I don't know.
Well, I
Well,
mean,
we were talking about the
here.
reference to like, do you have an obligation? And so the action of like, hey, do these things cause downstream negative effects that you can't always see? How do we react to that? What's the proper way of doing things? Big thing Loki is hitting on is the dependency argument. The people then get dependent on it. So for citizens in the U.S., you get dependent on
On these
like the free
programs.
healthcare you get dependent on these welfare programs. It's like, well, if I get a job, is the job, if I work 40 hours a week, the benefits I'm getting pay me, let's make the math simple here, $50,000 a year, which is way over what it is. But if I get a job, the job only pays $60,000. Is
Right,
working
right.
10 hours, is working 40 hours a week worth $10,000? And they're like,
You know,
no,
so
I'd rather stay home for those hours.
So two things. I mean, one, I think conceptually, like, welfare cliffs can be a problem. And I think that there are ways the U.S. should address welfare cliffs. This bill does not do that at all. It just takes benefits away from a lot of people who need them, obviously. Two, if we're concerned about, again, how much money we're spending, again, it's in the same bill. It's a bunch of these fucking tax cuts, which are going to increase the deficit a ton, and that's going to increase interest rates as well. I think it's like estimated, like it's like 600 billion, like increase in interest costs over the next 10 years or whatever. That's probably, I think that's more than like the SNAP cuts are estimated to be. I think that's more than the Medicaid cuts are estimated to be as well. So, I don't think there's any argument there that this bill is actually net benefit in that case. And, again, like I mentioned earlier, to some sense, I agree with you on these things, which is why we should be doing like a negative income tax. But like, this bill does not. I don't think it moves in the right direction in that sense. I think it adds a lot of administrative complexity to these things.
Wait, when you say like a negative income tax, like what percentage would you say that it would have to be?
I don't have a strong opinion on that. I have to do more reading. I don't know. I mean,
Okay,
like,
so when it comes to when it comes to our administration as it is right now versus how it ought to be, yeah, I would just say that it's the administration to be able to stop or very minimize like the people that are actively relying on this instead of them going out and doing other actions to be able to get off of these programs. Do you disagree with this?
repeat that. Sorry. You think the
Okay,
state has
so
an
when it comes to
obligation
our
to?
yeah, so when it comes to our administration, how it is now, how is it set up now? That we have administration where they are actively getting paid to do this act. Yeah, how it ought to be is going to be a whole different case. But with the act being it is now, it is going to be minimizing like the people that are relying on this and trying to push them off of this into finding like better jobs. When it comes to like WIC or other programs, they are trying to minimize people that are relying on this by helping them out in other ways.
No,
Do you
no,
disagree?
again, I do disagree, obviously. Again, I don't think most of the people that are going to be kicked off Medicaid or SNAP are these, able-bodied working people that are you're going to be able to
Wait,
like
you made a
easily
positive
find.
claim about this. I've given you one source, and when it came to your source, this is two contradicting evidence. When I look at my source, it
Those are
can be
looking
like
at
a
those are
very
looking at Loki. Those are looking at two different surveys. Both those articles are by Matt Brunegg. One of them is looking at a current
Yep.
population survey. The other one is looking at, I think it's called like the SIP survey. It's not like at all uncommon for surveys to be marginally different. But if you look at both of those surveys, in both cases, in one survey it's 5% of workers, in the other survey or Medicare recipients, in the other case it's 3% of Medicare recipients, right? So this is not like a a large difference here,
when
especially
it
when
comes
we're.
to like students. One of the biggest actions inside of this, why can't they work and do school at the same time? Like if we're looking at your studies that you posted, when it comes to like these students, they are actively reliant on Medicaid instead of them working and doing school.
I mean, I think there is evidence. I don't have these on hand, but like that school
Wait,
performance,
so you've been making
does.
positive claims. So when it comes to like the
You
action of
understand?
like
I'm
these
making
students,
a positive claim that from the stuff I've seen in the past, which I don't have on hand currently, there, and it just
So don't make
intuitively
positive
seems like it would be the case that school performance a lot of times does go down the more you work, right? I think students like, I don't see why we need to expect the majority of students to be
wait, why should we
working
not
as
expect
well.
them?
I think
Wait, because even with them going to school,
because they're
taking on the
focusing on getting their
necessary
education, right? Like,
okay, cool. So even with them going to school and focusing on their education, it's their own opinion to go into the schooling or be able to do this action. We do not have we should not be required to pay for their medical when it comes to this action. When it comes to them being reliant on Medicaid or being able to be reliant on all these social programs where they are actively able to work, when it comes to like most schools or when it comes to like the students, are you able to sit here and say that most of them are like not able bodies?
most of the students are not able-bodied. I mean, I'm sure most
Yeah.
students are. I'm sure it's likely that most students Or actually, I don't know because not all students are on Medicaid, right? So it could actually be the case that that the majority of students on Medicaid are not able-bodied. I don't actually know for sure.
Wait, why?
But
Wait, why would they not be
So-
able-bodied if they're actively going to
because
school to be able to like?
people with like disability are probably more likely to be on Medicaid, right? So like,
It doesn't necessarily matter whether they're able to embodied or not, though, because the whole point of like allowing access for students for these programs is to promote upward mobility.
We
Do you
ran
not
through
support
5 things
people
so
being
that
able
fucking
to
sucks.
be upwardly mobile?
Yeah, if we're talking like upper mobile, is this going to be like the people that aren't able to move around by themselves, or is this going to be the more of the action where they're reliant on other people to be able to help them out do stuff?
I think he
Well,
was
when I'm
talking
talking
about
about,
more
Well,
like
either
income.
way, you can still have a positive upward mobile effect, right? Like I don't.
Wait,
$100,
even with
$100 from Alexander Rin to end this. Okay, this is the end, folks. We're gonna find a better topic, and you can stay for this if you want. But let's
abortion?
wrap this up. We're gonna give you guys closing statements, right? Final thoughts on the big, beautiful, big bastard of a bill, whatever you want to call it. Why you support it, why you don't, and then we're gonna talk about, oh my God, anything else. Okay.
Abortion.
Anything else? Well, I have some ideas actually that might be more interesting. You're free to stay if you'd like, unless you get boring, then I'll kick you. But you're it's up
Fair.
to you, right? But first, since I did book you for a topic, a specific topic, I do want to give you a chance to give your closing statements and tell people where they can find you. I have links to all your stuffs that anyone who's given me a link at least. I have a link to your shows or your Twitters or whatever. It's in my YouTube description. People can go and click on that and give you a follow, give you a subscribe, whatever, right? So we're gonna give it first to we're gonna let Loki have the last word. So we're gonna give first to Nonfon, then we're just gonna kind of go up and down, up and down. Nonfon, final thoughts on this, please.
Yeah, I mean, like I said at the beginning, again, no matter like what type of person you are, you should probably be opposed to this bill. Even if you are, like a libertarian that just like really fucking hates welfare spending so much, right? Like you got to consider, because of how much we're increasing deficit with this bill, the interest rate costs are probably going to, be roughly equivalent or probably, likely higher than any savings that we make from, Medicaid or SNAP or whatever. And obviously, I think if you're a progressive and like these programs, you should be opposed to it because, it cuts these programs while at the same time cutting a lot of taxes that, probably disproportionately benefit rich people, right? While at the same time, poor people are also getting slammed by tariffs as well. Again, increasing the deficit a fuck ton at a time where it is dangerous to do that, at a time where our economy is growing, where we should not be doing that, at a time where the demand for bonds is going down because there's so much uncertainty, mostly because of the tariffs. Horrible, horrible, horrible bill. I don't think you heard much of a good defense for it here today. Yeah, it sucks.
Well, that's true, but thank you for being here, and gang, check him out. You can find him on Nonfom420 in Twitch, and I think on Twitter that's his name as well. So check him out, give him a follow, etc. Board cows, please.
All right. So to start off, the first thing I brought up was the fiscal deficit. Everyone here agreed that that was a concern. However, the opposing party made no attempts to actually come to like a reasonable conclusion on how to actually solve the problem. They just said this bill just exacerbates it. Well, you can just point to every other administration for the past 20 years that all just carried on the problem, kicking the can down the road.
Didn't I just talk
You
about
just blame this
Clinton?
bill as the sole problem of the deficit. Kind of hard to do.
Okay, well, where can people find you if they want to find you?
No, I don't have anything.
He has nothing, gang, but thank you for being here anyway. I do appreciate your time, sir. Vigilante, please.
You can find me at the Vigilante TV on Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube. So, I mean, like we've said, this bill cuts a fuckload for Medicaid as well as SNAP. I mean, these are important programs to allow people to be able to actually support their families and get health care. The Medicaid cuts also are going to kill hospitals across the country because it's going to put the burden on the hospitals in order to pay for people that don't have insurance. It also just throws a fuckload of money towards ICE, which is actually stupid. You don't really need a total of like $100 billion going towards ICE. Immigration isn't that much of a problem for us to need that much money going towards ICE of all things. And then it also gets rid of a bunch of clean energy incentives, which is going, I mean, we need clean air. We need fossil fuels aren't going to last forever. We need to start phasing towards, even if you don't care about the environment, and regardless need to start phasing towards wind, solar, hydrogen, and stuff, because eventually oil, gas, and natural gas and coal are going to run out anyways. So
Wait, and where in the bill does it say that it doesn't like prioritize this?
I mean, there is an entire section in the bill that gets rid of the uh, different incentivizations for that were created by the Inflation Reduction Act. There's also later on in the bill, there's more cuts in there. I can give you the exact pages. It's going to take
When
me
it
a second
comes
to
to
find it
the
though.
situation of Texas,
This is
would you say
closing
that they?
statements. Hold on,
Closing statement.
right? Let him. You get yours next. I promise, right? But let Vigilante finish up, tell me, and then we're gonna get to you. Okay, go ahead. Finish your thought, Vigilante, please.
So to answer your question, it's specifically based on my quick search of the bill. It's in Title 6 of the bill is where it cuts all of the different tax
Beautiful.
reliefs and stuff.
Okay. Thank you for being here, Vigilante. I appreciate you. Go check him out, gang. He gave you his Twitch and stuff and his Twitter. I put it in my YouTube description. You click it out and give him some love. Thank you for being here. Finally, last but not least, Loki. Please go ahead.
Okay, so when it came to the situation of ICE, I have given my source. I would recommend everyone looking at this when it comes to us funding asylum seekers or people that are actively coming over the border. They do not pay typically income tax and property tax, one of the biggest taxes for the IRS. And on top of that, when it came to the argument of like the green energy, everything like this, yeah, look at Texas. They don't regulate when it comes to like solar energy or like better energy that they typically go with, and they still have more solar panels and at the same time wind turbines than California. I would just say that when we like completely go against this, it's very simple. Texas read about their rules when it is the legislative where you're able to do solar energy and other things, no problem. It's
Okay.
not upon the like government to make this take place. It's on the private businesses. And when it comes to medical, hospitals are private. When it comes to them taking health insurance or taking unnecessary debt upon themselves, they already do this now. If they don't want to take a certain type of insurance, I have no problem with this.
Okay. Well, where could people find you?
Twitch, IMI.
Check them out, gang. Thank you for being here. With that, we're going to close out this segment, but we're not ending the stream because I want to do something else. And you guys are welcome to stay, but you don't have to. I'll release you. I'm not Hamas. I'm not going to hold you hostage. First of all, $5 from Krieger. I'm going to go with Krieger. That says, did Loki talk about how a baby's life is worth less than a paperclip and how he wouldn't save somebody's life if he had the chance? We had a wonderful discussion with Loki
Yep.
the other day, last week, about this. I am well aware of Loki's stances on this. It's not a secret, I suppose, or a surprise. But I don't want to
Not
talk about
palatable.
that specifically right now. I want to, and I'm going to share this on screen, right, so you can all see. Recently, Destiny was on a Piers Morgan panel, and it was pretty interesting, I felt. They had a clip of a recent tweet he made, I should say, didn't saw, and there's been a lot of response to that. I've made a take. A lot of people are mad at my take about this, and I want to discuss it a little bit because I think it does actually matter to the state of play, right? It matters how we message. It matters how we go forward. It matters how we do these things. So I'm going to share this clip on screen. You can click on it if you like. Here we go. Bloop. Bloop. And I'll make it large so people can actually see and read and all that shit. Okay. So let's see what he has to say. Okay, gang.
Question, Destiny. President there, but Destiny, I want to ask you a question. So, a woman called Kylie Jane Kramer posted on X. I've been trying to wrap my head around how the flooding in Texas became so devastating so quickly. Why not evacuate? Then I saw this. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick said the Guadalupe River rose 26 feet in just 46 minutes around 4 a.m. That doesn't even seem natural. To which you reposted posted this, and you put your own words. I heard God killed those kids because they were using NordVPN promo code Destiny to get around the Texas porn ban. On reflection, do you think that was grotesquely tasteless thing to be posting?
Absolutely not. The hand wringing, the hand wringing here. Oh my God! Stop. There are. If you want to talk about dead children, then you should talk about the residents of Kerr County who rejected using ARPA funds to build the very siren system that Ted Cruz was over here virtue signaling about. Now that the kids are dead, last I checked, the siren system isn't bringing anybody back to life. Okay, the very same system that they could have built for the better part of the last decade. They didn't want to touch those ARPA funds because they thought that if they did, Biden would go and steal their homes, which is the exact same lie that was told in North Carolina when people were rejecting FEMA funds because they thought that if the government was giving them money for their houses, they'd steal it. If you want to talk about grotesque and ghoulish things that are being said,
it's what you put online. I agree with you. It's what you write online. It is grotesque. It's disgusting. But I mean, I guess that's what you do.
How long have people like you told us that if we spend less money in Ukraine, you guys are going to spend more money investing in things like infrastructure in the United States? Where is that money going?
We just had another
massive debt increase. Another massive debt increase for more tax cuts for wealthy people. Congratulations. Thank you so much.
All right, let me get a Ben.
Wick, you're muted.
Oh, can you guys hear me? I said, okay, gang. So that was the tweet. That was the kind of call and response there, right? The back and forth. Well, first of all, before I get into my take on it, I'm just curious what you guys think about that. So what is your thoughts on Destiny's tweet here? Destiny's statement about, and I'll read it again, right?
They're not using NordVPN code Destiny.
Yes. The kids, right? Joking about God killing those kids, right? Or weaponizing, I would argue, the dead children in order to make a larger point, or to attack his enemies, or to expose hypocrisy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What are our thoughts here?
I'm a big fan of dark humor. I personally wouldn't get too mad at him for saying it. I do think Destiny keeps talking about wanting to be like a political guy, and that is just ineffective. He could have done like what the conservatives did in LA with the LA fires and criticized a lot more on the politicians of Texas for not doing the correct things, such as conservatives did in LA, being like, he didn't fill up the water reserves or whatever the fuck was going on there. That was like one of the big things going on. And again, he has a point, he just made it really poorly.
Made it really poorly. Why is that really poor? First of all, $5 from Alexander Rin to say, did Loki actually respond to any of the points, or just no? Medicare is 100% the reason most ERs can continue to operate. Thank you for the $5. What are the rest of your thoughts?
You made a positive claim.
Okay?
Can you provide your source on that?
What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, the things like this flooding is what happens when you slash $200 million from the NOAA weather reporting system. I mean, it's kind of what happens when we prioritize doing stupid things like cutting taxes for billionaires and banning porn and focusing on like trying to all the stupid shit that they're trying to do just in the sake of cutting funding, for us to not be able to fucking properly alert people whenever there are going to be natural disasters, because we can predict flash floods and stuff ahead of time.
Okay, that was on the disaster, but what about his joke? Do you think his joke was tasteful? Did you find it funny? Do you think it was politically effective for what Destiny claims to try to want to do?
Oh, I absolutely think it was funny. I was fucking laughing while we were watching that.
Do you think
I doubt it's politically effective, and it probably is like bad optically, but I think Destiny probably doesn't care because people, I mean, he's already optically so toxic that nothing matters.
I do not
Like, probably the only one.
Sure. I'm trying to get this out here. How do I say this? I do not like this idea that I hear over and over and over again, that optics don't matter, or that where has nice got us, things like that. So let me read you guys my response to this, okay? And then I'll give you some choice responses that I got from my response, some people who had issues with what I said. So this is what I said in response to this, and we can maybe discuss it. And again, you can stay as long as you like. If you want to leave, I don't give a shit. Says this. The problem is that it becomes harder, not easier, to talk about the hypocrisy of Republicans when the omniliberal, or Destiny in this case, does his edgy shtick. Instead of pointing out all the times Republicans have been hypocrites, we're stuck talking about the edgy tweet. We're stuck talking about, again, Piers Morgan didn't bring up the hypocrisy. He brought up the edgy tweet, right? I promise you, okay, you can discuss the depredations and failures of Republicans and MAGA and Trump without using dead kids as a weapon to mock these hypocrites. A lot of
Jesus. What a there was like barely any defense of the bill like anywhere. And I just don't care about it. Doesn't mean that much. Whatever. What a insane fucking thing, dude. Hold on, I don't even know. I don't remember the exact claim Loki made. I think Loki, he had like an issue with the Matt Brunig thing, but the thing he sent me, I don't even think disagreed with me like almost at all. Also, it's funny that he cited this thing at the, it's like, I know everything in these people's brains. I know everything in people's brains. It's like, have you seen the FAIR study? Did you know FAIR did this bullshit study that obviously I know about? Like, oh my god. And this guy libertarian too. Why are we damn you left? But yeah, I don't give a fuck about it. Like I was curious what Destiny said, but no offense, I don't care to stick around for too much of that discussion. I don't care. I'm gonna argue with the libertarian dude if he was taking call. I said, for sure you can just DM the libertarian guy, but I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if he's doing call-ins or not. I saw someone else ask, but Wick didn't answer. So like, dude, I hate these people. Like, aren't you a libertarian? Like, believe it or not, I understand that. These people don't pay property or income tax, but also people don't even I'm pretty sure once you get work authorization, you do pay income taxes. And I wish I knew off the top of my head the percentage of asylum seekers that got work authorization, because I believe you can apply for work authorization in the U.S. after 90 days if you're awaiting a trial. But what do I even do? Asylum seekers with work permits pay income tax. I know they pay payroll tax. I don't know for sure if they pay income tax. Asylum seekers who are work permit are required to pay income tax. Yeah, like. Also, oh my god, like every single. You just made a positive claim. Do you have a source for that? It's like, yeah. This is what he sent me, but I don't even think this disagrees with me. I forget what his exact claim was. Where are all the able-bodied people on Medicare that he thinks we can kick off? Or make it jobs, not kick off. Working full-time, working part-time, not working due to caregiving, not working due to illness or disability, not working due to school attendance. I guess he said like, oh, why can't students just go to work too? But not working due to retirement, inability to find work, or other reasons. So like at most, what we have 8. We have like, I wish it disaggregated retirement and inability to find work, but okay, dog. I mean, like that's chill, I guess. Okay. Long medicated adults who work part-time workers also. Reasons for working part-time. Characteristics of medicated adults. Dude, I don't even. What is he trying to show with this? I don't even know. Non-fat wants America to be a tax, or sorry, to be everyone wants every American to be a worker so we can GDP max and tax max. This is true and based. This is true and based, unironically. Wait, oh my god, I mentioned something I was citing. Arkansas was the only state to implement a policy with consequences for non-compliance, resulting in 18,000 losing coverage for failure to meet work requirements. Court struck down many waiver approvals, including Arkansas, Biden administration, blah, 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 blah. Currently, Georgia is the only state with work requirement waiver in place. Oh my god. And we're happy, I'm happy with where things are going financially. It is very predictable and orderly. What, for the U.S., huh? Or you? For you, that might make sense, because I know you're loaded. But for the U.S., and we could be UBI recipients, true. And it's also like insane. Like I just feel like almost none of the points were addressed about like, hey, do we feel like the tax code is probably going to be more complicated because of all these random bullshit deduction things we have, like the car interest deduction only if your car's been in the U.S., right? And like, do we care at all that we're adding all these administrative burdens? Do we care at all that the deficit is going to increase and interest rates are going to increase and it's going to slow down growth? And it's like insane. Just save your money, give it to the AIs to manage it for you, and let the AI bootstrap your funds into income. Base. Let's go. Okay, I don't think anyone's playing Export Hold'em right now. Fucking seats. I bet Malaysia makes some seats. Ah, my bad. Italy is the big seat country. Refined petroleum. It's got to be the U.S. or it might be Saudi Arabia. Right? It's probably Saudi Arabia. It could be Indonesia. Why do Loki keep saying tax stuff? Yeah, that too. I have no clue what he like. Why he was using that. I've never heard people use that term before. I mean, I understand what he. Oh fuck. Yeah, it was U.S. Damn. I understand what he means by that, but like, what are we? That was just weird. Electrical transformers. I don't know, man. Netherlands, god fucking damn it. I think the point was that people not working due to illness and disability are only 10% of the 30% of people not working due to disability, but on supplemental security income or social security disability insurance. So it's not the majority by that particular metric. Okay. My local part, yeah, nice one, Bill from Intercourse. We're saying taxes are not high enough. Well, he doesn't want to raise taxes like at all. He's like a super hardcore like libertarian taxes of slavery dude. So like, what are we even? Yeah. Though merely the policy of higher taxes was good. The 30% not working for reasons other than education. And AI probably wrote all those answers. Probably. I'm not paying attention to this. Fuck this. What are we doing? Oh my god. I'm just high. Never mind. I mean, I don't know if you were there for the beginning of it, Patrol. Also, I just feel like, I mean, obviously we ran in circles a lot, but it's just so funny to like, oh, deportations are good because immigrant lay tax dollar lay fair study, and I'm like, okay, well, there's a lot of issues with that fair study, and then like even if I accept that first generation immigrants are a tax drain. You know, their children tend not to be. And like, here's, by the way, a study that looks at 100 years up of mobility and finds that a lot of immigrants actually grow up to be a lot richer than their parents and everything like that. But then like he just goes immediately back to lay welfare, lay immigrant, lay welfare. Oh shit, thanks for the donut patrol. Let's fucking go. Let's fucking get a twerk play for that. The conversation doesn't matter anymore. Data's got a whole lot better. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Why is the audio not working? There should be a yippee sound effect. Maybe you guys heard it and I didn't. I appreciate it, Patrol. I really do. I really do. I really do. I really do. Are they all still there? I'm just curious.
And if you find someone that does get it and they might switch their political ideology when it comes to the actions, kind of like when I brought it to Columbine, the Democrats were actively like trying to oppose.
Okay. Okay. Want more of them? They make the race accurate ability arguments out loud in response to that. It's not a good society. It's not a good. I don't want that society. I don't want that world. I don't want that world. Listen, okay. At least this dude cites the one bullshit study. Okay, at least we got that. At least we don't just get like no citation. Although I don't understand. Aren't like borders a violation of the NAP? Like what do you mean? Like what isn't it a violation of my autonomy? You're telling me like also the amount of times well there's no causal obligation. It's like, okay, I'm not necessarily claiming that there is a whatever causal obligation under your moral framework. I'm simply just claiming that like broadly it seems like these things have just good outcomes. Yeah. Feeling picked on because everyone is picking on us AI conjoyers nowadays. I mean, I understand people don't like AI. I don't know what that other word means. Seeing people who don't look like my cousin. My cousin wife is a spiritual warfare in violation of NAP. That's true. That's true. Psychic prophet. Okay, we just really hate brown people. Seeing brown people. So. More folks using a study about all immigrants on average being a net tax gain, which is nonsense, to make a point that third world illegals aren't a tax rate. Localist, you don't know what study I'm citing. I'm citing so there's a 2017 study from the National Academy of Sciences that basically disaggregates how the next net tax contributions of immigrants by skill level, and it finds immigrants of all skill levels except for immigrants without high school degrees are net tax contributors, right? So this is disaggregating by skill level, and then we could look at the percentage of asylum seekers like crossing the border or whatever. Many of them don't have high school degrees, which is fair, but a lot of them do have high school degrees. I think the majority of them, is like 55% or something to 45%, do have high school degrees or above, so they probably likely are net tax contributors. And then the other 45%, even if they aren't, their children likely will be. And then you also have to account for the indirect effects they have, right? Because if they increase GDP and they increase business activity, well, then their indirect tax effects can make up for it. And, you look at that study from Minneapolis in 2020, and what do you see? Oh, it looks like a lot of even low-skill immigrants are actually net tax contributors once you account for the indirect taxes that they receive. You made a positive claim. Can you provide a source of that? We could also just tax consumption more. Dude, I brought that up like a little bit, but we barely talked about that. Because they were like, oh, the government has 3 ways to get money or whatever. It's like, okay, clearly, like we have so much more room to raise taxes than we do to like borrow more or to like, to print it. I mean, our inflation's above target. Although maybe I should have mentioned this. Like, obviously, we're probably going to see a lot of this debt be monetized, especially because I don't know how much we'll see, but it's not like I don't think none of this debt is going to be monetized. So there's going to be some of this debt that's monetized, especially because people are less willing to buy American bonds now. People are selling American bonds. People don't want to be invested in an economy that's run by a madman who has a different trade policy every day, who sends trade or tariff letters to countries, that have like random capitalization that are like thrown together haphazardly, even though they had like 90 days to do this, and like it's like, what are we doing, dog? We're not having a lot of talk about why the things with the new immigration was done. What do you mean? Okay. Kill me. Kill me. Kill me. I hate this world. I hate this place. I hate this place. His trade policy is chaotic and broken by design. I don't know if it is. It's hard for me to know what his intentions are. Did that message send? What, the Chicago one? Or too long? It might have been too long. The reality, like, I don't know how many times I have to say this so clear. Like, I understand, like, obviously nothing is ever gonna change your mind, because you literally you literally have, like, preconceived notion of, like, what is true, right? And like, you have no amount of evidence is ever gonna change your mind. By the way, why do you, like, just not care that your favorite, like, Mike dude is like just wrong about banking, by the way? Like, it doesn't seem like you, like, it seems like you watch these like flashy videos, like develop some preconceived notion, or that confirm your preconceived notion, and then like are totally immune to any evidence that says the opposite ever. Mass illegal immigration is such an economic gain and tax gain for Chicago. I mean, it obviously can have local negative effects, especially because on a local level, immigrants are more, a lot of states and localities are more open to giving welfare benefits to undocumented immigrants than than the federal government is, right? So, Wired's leaders from Mayor Johnson to Illinois Governor Pritzker demanding billions in federal aid to handle the crisis. I don't even know to what extent this is true, but locally, this is obviously like unbelievably fucking retarded, because again, you have predetermined that it is true that illegal immigrants are like a net tax drain, and it doesn't matter how much evidence I set you for the opposite. It literally doesn't matter. There's literally nothing else to change your mind, because you will just say it's gaslighting. You'll just say it's academic bullshit, right? Like, you literally don't believe in any academics. Like, you don't believe in any economists with actual authority, right? Like, I didn't say net, and it doesn't even matter. Obviously, the net matters, but okay. These immigrants are self-sufficient. Why do 60% rely on taxpayer-funded housing? Well, again, the net payment is what matters. Localists, obviously, they can rely on taxpayer-funded housing, which, again, I don't even know to what extent that is true. And again, it doesn't matter if I show you evidence that is the opposite, because you already have this preconceived notion that it is true, and then we're going to change your mind, so it doesn't matter. Healthcare, I mean, I can show you evidence that, like, typically immigrants don't actually receive as much or consume as much healthcare as native-borns, but whatever. And food stamps within 6 months of arrival. Why does a net benefit require $300 million in emergency spending? Hi, what's up, Tiberius? Kill me, kill me, kill me. Straw man him ignore his strongest argument that anything that contradicts him is gay and Jewish gaslighting. Yeah, exactly. Like, by the way, localists, it's so, I can't believe, dude, I can't, like, I see why you, after watching some of those, fucking Mike Maloney, whatever, fucking videos, I see why you use Keynesianism as a slur, because you've just been propagandized by this guy who doesn't even have an econ degree about how everything works, like, some one big fucking... Heard you invited Big over. Was wondering what you were talking about. I mean, I just sent him an invite to my server. I mean, he can. Oh shit, they're in the waiting room. I didn't even realize. God, I'm a bad streamer. I mean, they can come talk if they want to. But real quick, hold on, localist. You realize like you just watch this flashy video and it's like, oh, this is the one true thing ever, and I'm not going to read any paper ever that contradicts any of this stuff ever. Like, okay, buddy. Like this dude, by the way, is like Edward Griffin dude or whatever. It's like a big conspiracy theorist too. But like, why are we doing this? Yes. I love the flashy graphics and the bullshit. Okay.
Sending skip. Oh,
What's up?
oh, nothing. I
Hey,
was just
buddy.
talking to Vigilante.
Oh, I mean, you were both in a
Yeah.
waiting room. I was just...
Alright,
we were
I'll
talking
disappear.
about how like it's that topic in general is kind of like a hard topic to do the more aggressive debate style on. I would say because of just how much goes into it. I mean, like if we would have focused more on like one point, like I was considering bringing up the like no tax on tips because like when me and you were prepping, when like we were talking about like what we were going to talk about, you kind of pointed out how it was a bad thing, and then I thought about it and was like, there's a lot better ways that we could do this. Like just something that I would say would be a lot better to do instead of like the no tax on tips and no tax on overtime would be to just down the tax rate for people who make less than a livable wage to
Right.
zero.
I mean, I think you can just increase the standard deduction. It seems silly to like only help like I think it's like 3% of workers are tipped workers, and then of those tipped workers, a lot of them already don't pay any income tax because they make below the standard deduction, right? So like it's clearly much more effective just to raise the standard deduction, or even just to give out more benefits, right? Like we just gave people more Medicare or food stamps or whatever nonsense to to help offset the fact that we're taxing them. Like those are clearly much better options than no tax on tips.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot better ways that we can do this than what was done. I also, like I was telling you on our DMs, I hate the fact that even to get the no tax on tips and no tax on overtime, they fucking limited it even more by requiring that you have a social security number, which is actually retarded.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it seems silly. I mean, that's another thing, no tax and tip is like obviously where we're just requiring more paperwork to be done just to help, a very small amount of workers, but, whatever.
No way, it's also kind of a fucking IRS trap because if people actually start fucking reporting how much they're actually making in tips, they're gonna get a fucking call from the IRS.
Right.
Because of it.
All right. I've kept up with the no tax on overtime because that will affect me personally, but the tips thing I don't really follow on. Is that any of your wages that are gone through tips? It's not taxed now. Is that what this is supposed to be?
It's like a $25,000, or like you can just deduct tips from your like income tax, I think. So I think it's like up to $25,000. You can deduct it from your income.
Yeah, up to $25,000.
Wild.
No, it gets worse, Ty, because it also applies to certain businesses. So businesses like barbers and other hair salons,
like this is any of the shit end of the service economy, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is
but like also realize that barbers and like nail care and like spas and stuff mostly hire immigrant workers. So all of the business will be able to benefit from like the tax on tips deduction, but the workers won't, which makes it even worse.
Oh, because they're I guess we're assuming they're illegal anyway?
No, because it requires you to have a social security number in order to get it. And immigrants don't get it, even once you become a citizen, don't get a social security number.
That basically means okay. That's really weird because every immigrant I've told that is a legal immigrant here has told me it's like, yeah, I remember going to get my social security card. So yeah, that one shocks me a little bit. Somebody has lied to me or somebody has lied to you. I don't know which is the case.
I mean, I don't know. I think obviously people who have just like work permits, I don't think have social security cards. I think you have to actually be like naturalized in order to get one.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's you have to be a citizen.
Yeah.
I don't even think you have to be working because I'm pretty sure I had my Social Security card before I was 4.
Okay,
Yeah.
so yeah, sorry, I was wrong. You do get a social security number once you become a citizen, but
Cool.
it still doesn't affect it still negatively affects anybody that's here on like a work permit and stuff.
Well, so this is the part where I'm not going to say whether it's good economically because I have not even remotely gone through the numbers of that fucking mess. But what I can say is that this is definitely pointing a political cord towards a very particular group of people that, if they're not onboarded to the Republican cause, can very much be so. This is very much targeted towards getting people who are in these really shitty industries, or at least in my opinion, they're shitty, and who are competing with immigrant labor to openly just fall in love with the Trump administration. Because
Well, I think
if you,
I think the entire policy was just designed to try to win over Nevada because a lot of Nevada workers are tipped, and that's a swing state. I'm pretty sure that was the rationale.
well, I mean, on a level that makes sense, but like let's play meta here for a second. Republicans are doing extremely well in capturing voters that are making less than, what is it? Decently well with under 50,000, but really well under 30,000, if I remember these statistics right. And this is key into both of those groups. This is a lot of those, or excuse me, a lot of the people who make this kind of income are in these industries. And if you thought maybe Trump was a little too brazen or he wasn't socially liberal enough, but all of a sudden you get a $25,000 deduction in taxes, yeah, like that's going to be a hard thing for the Democrats to compete with.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's why they voted
don't
for
get
it
me
as well,
wrong,
right?
like-
I mean, it passed the Senate
get me
unanimously,
wrong.
so.
There were a lot of things in this bill, like besides that, the like no tax on overtime and stuff, that were like actual good things. Because like I did a lot of my research, like actually like going over the bill, and so like for example, one of the things that they did was they added post-secondary credentials, and the way that they phrased it, it can apply to both students and teachers, are now added to the qualified expenses list for things that you can deduct off your taxes. So like there are a lot of good things in the bill, but there's also a lot of fucking terrible things in the bill too.
I think
I mean, I can believe it.
one good thing in
I
the
haven't gone
bill.
over like remotely half the line item list, but
I got through.
I mean, even the CBO was projecting their. Okay, anyway, yeah, like it wasn't the CBO even projecting that this was going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of $3 trillion over 10 years that this was going to put a hole in?
Yeah, it's at least 3.4 trillion, likely more if interest cost, and then obviously also depends on how much we grow, and could be the case that we grow less than they're projecting.
So I've largely been in the camp of, me personally, that while we have been able to manage very successfully a large debt to GDP ratio, this was because we were in an era where interest rates were at like 3% or lower. Like it's totally doable. But what I'm actually afraid of now, and I think the situation has changed, is that we are in the possibility of a cascade default, where eventually we spend so much that we're paying, a third, if not half of the budget goes to just interest payments. Because correct me if I'm wrong, we broke the $1 trillion mark last year.
If we didn't,
and that's
we
a
were
sixth of the
pretty
budget.
close, Yeah.
And the issue is that
that's one thing I mentioned. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, like this October, we've got, I think, $7 trillion of debt that has to get refinanced. We already are in situations where we're seeing more spending on top of the spending that we've already been doing. We're projected to have $1 trillion deficit just this year, which is a little concerning. I'm not going to act like it's the end of days, but what does that budget look like next year if we refinance $7 trillion in debt and it goes from 1, 2, or 3% interest to 6, 7, 8, which is what we're seeing? What's the budget look like in interest payments just next year? Is that 1.5 in the hole? This can hurt really fucking quickly.
Yeah.
Like by the end of the Trump administration, I've seen calculations. I don't know if this is actually remotely where it goes because it could go 1,000 different ways. But 50 trillion national debt by the time Trump leaves office. You know,
I mean, yeah, I don't know. I've seen I remember the estimates are like it's probably going to be about like 130% debt to GDP by 2034, assuming basically that we stay on the same growth path that we're on now. That's obviously one of the important things is like servicing the debt costs money when interest rates go up, right? Like, and like so any of these spending cuts that we do, like we're cutting SNAP or whatever, like we're gonna lose an equal amount of money just on the increased interest rates and servicing the debt. So like what are we even doing, dog? But
well, I don't have a problem with austerity, but there is definitely a conversation to be had between what forms of spending are more effective at generating revenue than others, because there's definitely a difference. Yeah, I'm not gonna have that conversation today because I'm not in a position to have that conversation. I'll just put it that way.
Sure. I mean, I think there's
yeah,
we talked about this a little on the panel, but like I think there's clearly a better case for raising taxes. There are obviously places where I would cut spending, but I think we have a decent amount of room to raise taxes in the U.S., especially if we start doing more efficient taxes. But
I'm not against raising taxes. I just piss everybody off when I say that you need to hit that bottom income brackets. If you make less than $47,000 a year, those two brackets, those need to be hit. They need to be hit hard. The vast majority of people who are poor in this country don't get taxed at all, or get actually a rebate when it's all said and done. There's 1,000 different conversations to have from that one. I'm just gonna say I'm open to considering it because I still fall in this bracket and I don't pay shit.
Right.
And most of my peers don't either. I think that's a problem.
I mean, the whole reason that's a thing though is to promote upward mobility, which is
it's not an upward mobility thing. It's a poverty control. Like that's all this is. It's just like, all right, like that's what it is. Now I'm not going to get into the upper mobility conversation because that's more of a socioeconomics thing, just a straight economics. What I did want to get into, and I got to make sure I keep my train of thought on this one for a second. Yeah, I lost it. Son of a bitch. Yeah. My bad. I was going somewhere with it. I'll probably pick it back up in a second. But yeah, I even
gave him an example of like how we could generate more tax revenue without even increasing taxes. And then they fucking jumped on board on that.
Full
and
debate once I upload it.
Proceeded to pretend that he didn't agree. That wasn't brought up during his closing statement. Whenever I fucking brought up just
did you see the mental? Did you see the mental debate reset in real time where people actually will be open-minded enough to agree with you, but then whenever they have to make their fighting closing statement and they have to admit that, oh yeah, I was right the entire fucking time, and these people are all losers, and here's my point stands, and then. It's like, oh yeah, did you not remember that you agreed with me 30 minutes ago that like this, and this are all true? Mm-hmm. This is what we're talking about, right?
Yeah. That's why I fucking tend to debate for the audience and not the people on the panel. Even if I can get people on the panel to agree, the whole point is more like convince the audience, because it's like. You're just going to mental reset and fucking disagree with me later anyways. It doesn't matter if you agree with me now.
And I don't think anyone, I don't know if anyone in the audience thought that, there was an actual like good defense of that bill, like at any point. Like it was like, at most they were like, oh, he made maybe a good point about like Medicaid or something, but like, I never heard any good response to like, if we're so concerned about Medicaid spending, like, why are we not concerned about the interest rates, and why are we not concerned about the tax cuts? Like, what, like?
But the NAP.
I know the NAP. I know.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on here, but dude, I can get along with MAGA to a point. I am in Trump country. Some of these people's problems are my problems. Like, I get it, but on another level, like the level of incoherent insanity that I see from most of MAGA is just, it blows my mind. And don't get me wrong, I have issue with you Democrats, but holy shit. I can't keep up with the insanity.
Dude was MAGA. You seem more like a fucking ANCAP. And
I think that one, the Loki dude.
Oh, like, okay, I didn't watch the panel, but I'm just like talking about MAGA in general. I can't keep up with like some of these crazy justifications, and like Twitter. I hate Twitter, but they've actually shown a lot of the posts in the beginning of the year, like on the Epstein files and like all the shit over the last month that have been like hot button topics. And the right was saying consistently different shit 6 fucking months ago. Right. Like the mental gymnastics are real. Now, just for the record, for my audience out there, my problem with the Democrats is the moral gymnastics, but I just want to digress.
Okay.
Oh, but Ty, because you didn't watch the panel, I'm gonna summarize it in like
2 easy steps.
Sentences.
Yeah.
It was we would make a point, and then Loki would basically just defer back to the nap and say that we don't have an obligation to do shit for society.
Which is wild because, like, even by my ethics and values, half of the shit the libertarian wants to do is a.
True. Hold on. I just want to.
Or maybe it's just the flow.
The future, if we have a recession or something, and we want to probably move to some type of regressive consumption tax.
We're in a largely free market.
I could like bite that bullet, like whatever. I think it was before that. We were talking about Medicaid. I don't even remember what his point was, but he linked this KFF thing, which I'm pretty sure I've been linked to before, and it doesn't even disagree with me.
Through subsidies is what allows a lot of hospitals to.
And whatever articles about this, right?
Shop, but it doesn't give health like insurance, and they want to keep doing this act. Is this on us to pay for their health insurance, or
really those funds? So
who like aren't working. It's like I think it's like 3% of working age people on Medicaid are not working. And if you think about it, those are not the people consuming Medicare benefits, right? Young men sitting at home all day playing on their Xbox are not the ones getting expensive surgeries or anything. It's the disabled people, it's the elderly people, it's the children, it's people that actually consuming the benefits are people who work requirements aren't supposed to affect eligibility.
Agree with Trump. He is going to be cutting the action of Medicaid a lot more. Unless if one of you guys can give me a justified like causal obligation that I have for these people. Why should
you give me justified causal obligation?
Sit here, we are paying the taxes for this. So if we're going to cut the
net is a good thing. Hospital.
Right. I mean, I think clearly, the outcomes from having Medicaid seem to be like pretty positive, right? Like I understand you personally, may have your own theory of or own belief in private property and whatever autonomy concerns you may have with that. But look,
time this is going to be based off of them if they're actively working a job.
The cost of Medicaid, it's the people who are disabled. Okay, do you deny that like involuntary unemployment is a thing? People's obligation. Dude, it's so crazy that he's like, yeah, I really only think that people can't get jobs if there's a recession. And it's like, okay, like really, like we're okay. People who work requirements aren't supposed to affect. Right. I mean, I think clearly, the outcomes from having Medicaid seem to be also from when COVID era eligibility rules were changed, right? Like states sent out notices, right?
Causal obligation to another person. This is upon case. If you guys can give me a justified like causal
as a citizen with
God, where the fuck right? People just go out and like get these jobs or whatever. When really your issue is like a much more like much more like fundamental like
It's just performative. I don't really think much is gonna go. I think the solution that we're getting to is kind of a bit different. So
one of the points.
Hold on. What?
COVID era benefits, but I mean still. I mean we had a budget surplus, right?
Held up.
The thing I'll say like
at the end of the day.
Yeah, because when it comes to Congress, every single time that they put their hand into the cookie jar, when we give them 10 cents.
Truth nuke.
All right, so the big problem with the debt, in my opinion, is that.
But I also think that like you could probably move to some type of.
Why, to those of you who are
healthy food costs and stuff like that, and inflation.
Oh, this is a snap of effects. Regardless if it's your negligence or someone else's negligence, if you are flagpole reductio, let's go. Dude, it's so funny that he bit the flagpole reductio.
It's really hard to tell with like benefits that I hear, but like what was the results before? What were the results?
How are we at 4.8 now? How do we get?
Worth $10,000. And then like
so most of the people that are going to be kicked off Medicaid or SNAP are these able-bodied working people that are going to be able to. If you look at both of those surveys, in both cases, in one survey, hold on, for these, able-bodied working people.
So looking at about this, I've given you one source, and when it came to your source, this is two contradicting evidence. When I look at my source,
those are looking at two different surveys. Both those articles are by Matt Brunegg. He said that's at 6:27. I don't have the time on my fucking thing. God damn it. Well, that was only added because the senator from Alaska wanted to avoid.
So the way that it worked before.
We're using money in other locations. One of the best cases is going to be us using it in the military or
top rate on that could probably be
2 or 3 options. I don't really mind inflation that much. I hold a lot of assets.
Bill was going to fail, and then there were like
What?
like that this bill increases it in like so many. Okay, I'll find it later. Fuck. Oh, you're still. What's up?
not much. Just chilling.
Yeah, I was looking for the fucking
15
part
to-
where he. I don't. The source he sent me, I don't even think contradicts what I said, because it said like, you know, obviously a lot of the people, you know, very small percentage of people on Medicaid are like able-bodied people who are able to work, and he sent me this source, but I don't even think this. I really can't see how much the source disagrees with me, and I forget exactly. what his-
Honestly, I think the source that he sent us was like supported your point even more.
Yeah, I know, it's funny. It even mentions like the same like Arkansas study that like I did, but it's like, yeah, like clearly, I guess he at one point said, "Oh, you know, I think all these students should be working too," but like, yeah, this is like, you know, 8% not working due to retirement, inability to find work, or other reason. So I really wish they separated out retirement, but like, you know, these are not many people can only find part-time work, childcare problems, other response. School training.
And the whole conservative libertarian idea of just find a better job that Bro kept bringing up is so fucking stupid, especially with his position of like students, like we shouldn't really have to fund people being able to go to college, when like the whole ability for people to be able to get better jobs is pretty much tied to the ability to go to college.
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah, I think it's I mentioned this in the debate, but you know, I do also think it's weird that he's like, you know, all these people could be working and like, you know, all that jazz. But then it's like, okay, you know, we agree that involuntary unemployment exists sometimes. Now he said like involuntary unemployment like only exists like, you know, during recessions, and you know, even then people could just go, you know, do a hard manual labor or whatever, and not and not like and not be unemployed. But it's just even in that case, he said like, oh, yeah, no, even if they are involuntarily unemployed, I want to give them fucking Medicaid. It's like, okay, so why do we keep coming back to this involuntary unemployment thing? Like, why do you don't care either way? Like, what are you doing? Like,
I mean, it's not like unemployment in general is voluntary. I'd say like for maybe like 0.5% of the people that are unemployed maximum, it's like voluntary, but like people can't. It's not as easy to find a job right now as people think it is. There's the whole fucking ghost job shit going on. There's like people will fucking just reject you for being overqualified, which is why I couldn't get a fucking job at McDonald's or any of that shit. Because like I have fucking management experience and shit. And then you also have like the overinflation of like the requirements to get an entry level job, where have like so I work in tech, and like the requirements to get an entry level tech job right now are like fucking they want you to have a bachelor's degree and like 5 to 10 years of experience, which is fucking retarded. It's an entry level job.
right. I mean, you know, I think like obviously like there's got to be like, you know, on some margin, you know, people are to some extent like personally responsible for at least like trying to get a job or whatever. But like, you know, very clearly it's like, you know, the employers are the one that are making schedules, right? The employers are the one deciding how many people to hire. Now, you know, I don't think it's like necessarily bad that employers are doing that. You know, I think I think that profit maximizing businesses or whatever, you know, typically that's a like net positive. But like, you know, to say that doesn't create any involuntary unemployment seems rather stupid. But
yeah, for sure. I don't think a lot of like ANCAPs really. How much engagement have you like had with ANCAPs in the past? Because like the whole thing that got me into fucking like debating in general was like joining a fucking anarcho-communist versus anarcho-capitalist debate group on Facebook back in the day. Back when I was an anarcho-communist.
yeah, I mean, not like a ton or anything, but you know, I've talked to a few of them, and you know, I see broadly libertarian arguments, you know, come up a lot. Obviously, even if it's like a MAGA person talking, you know, they'll use the same type of same strain of arguments. Like you know, when Trump says you know, he doesn't want property tax or whatever. Suddenly, like, MAGA people are all arguing that property tax is theft and everything, right? So, I've talked to Fabian Liberty. I've talked to, I mean, Lactoid is not an anarcho-capitalist, but he's like a pretty hardcore libertarian dude. I've talked to him. I've talked to a few other randos, but yeah.
Lactoid can be fun sometimes.
Yeah, I know.
I noticed, like, when I was like, because like I'd heard of you before. I just like hadn't watched any of your content or anything. When I was like looking through your content, I saw like you also kind of go on like the more farther right panels, like the tomato chicks shit.
Yeah.
I fucking love it. Because like I go on VK a lot. If you know who Speakeasy is.
Yeah.
I go on VK like I'd say like every other week or so. I fucking love how like with the like super far right crowd, like especially like on VK, like the ones that are like literally just Christian nationalists will still sit there and call themselves libertarian and use libertarian talking points like they're not being hypocrites.
I know. Okay, man. I've got some places to be. I'm probably gonna go edit that video. Probably read some other things. Yeah.
All right. Talk to you later, man.
See you later. Appreciate it.
Bye.
Oh shit. I'm sorry, Board Crows. He was in the waiting room. But I got places to be now. Okay, you're going over to fucking Rinyold on Twitch, and is anyone I know streaming on YouTube? Well, I guess Rinyold's probably also streaming on YouTube, but IRI is, I guess, so. Head over to him. Yeah, I'll see you guys probably tomorrow. Probably streaming tomorrow. I'm guessing. And then on Friday, we got that debate with Tyler about tariffs, and so that'll be fun. Can't wait. I'm trying to think. I think that's all I got scheduled right now. Yeah. So, yeah, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Love streaming. Love you guys watching me stream. Make sure to follow, subscribe, all that stuff if you have not already. Okay. See you guys tomorrow. Love you. Appreciate ya. Hell yeah.